Oh, look, we're live. Hello, everyone. Hello. Well, wasn't that a fun episode? I feel like sometimes it alternates between having these. I feel like sometimes it alternates. Hushy vortex of live streaming. It alternates between these episodes where there's like a whole bunch going on, so many different little scenes, and it's almost a little hard to talk about. And then we have some of these episodes where we get these long focus scenes, and they're a little more emotional, more involved. Like episode 4 was like that with Rhaenyra and Daemon sneaking out into the city. This reminded me of that one. We had a lot of long scenes. And of course, when we get everybody together, it's time for high drama. It's the epic Game of Thrones, drama when we've got all the players in one room. That's when the real games are being played. Everyone can see all the nuances that we're looking for, all the people in the room. A lot of people here and a lot of interesting talk today. So we had a funeral, we had a wedding, a fake death, nanny Vhagar, a lot going on. So here's what's going on, guys. I actually have 2 surprise guests. They're going to be coming on later in about half an hour. And in fact, before I forget, I'm going to just go ahead and drop the link where I said that I was going to so that our guests can find their way here when they come. You will know one for certain and maybe both. But we've got about half an hour where I'm going to take your super chats hot and heavy. And that is so that we can get that going. So I'm going to answer your questions first. Then I'm going to bring my guests on, and I will focus on them and sort of give preference to them as far as giving my attention to them, of course. So I think we'll try that. You guys know I sometimes get overwhelmed, but basically bring it on. Ask me your questions, and we'll peel this apart. I've got lots of thoughts about the episode. One came in already, looks like. That was from Marvin Martin. He of the Q57 modulator. What changed Vhagar from roasting to acceptance? Okay, well, let's talk about that first. I loved the Vhagar Aemond scene. Aemond is definitely more like, well, almost, maybe, yeah, I guess we could say more likable. We just don't know anything about Aemond until he's really older, except for this one incident. I really like how they did it. There was a couple changes from the book in that Baela and Rhaena were involved. I thought it made sense. Not really overly focused on the changes and stuff, but I like the idea of them looking out the window and being like, they're stealing Vhagar. They're stealing Grandma. Somebody's stealing Grandma's car. So that was righteous. I like that they woke up Jace too, because that sort of shows a little camaraderie. They're looking to Jace to do something about it, or just, they're telling him when they're upset about something. And so they all go down there, and little Aemond serving it up. It's just serving it up. He's 4-on-1 or 3-on-1, I guess. Well, no, 4-on-1 with Luke, and he was dealing out the pain. He punched that little girl square in the face. That's right. Oh yeah. Oh, he did. Well, she hit him first too. Yeah, that was bad for him. Yeah. Well, we will say that Aemond, he held the rock a couple times. He had it in his hand where he could have dealt a crushing blow to someone and didn't. So they're kind of showing you that Aemond is not totally a bad kid. It's tempting. I will just say, if you haven't read the books, he seems mostly like a pretty evil dude in the books. But they've given us a few moments now where they've shown that he's a little better character than his derelict older brother, the window wanker. # window wanker prince. Yes. Reign of princes. Don't stand under the window. That's not where you want to be. Yeah. So, love is getting ready to reign over King's Landing. Oh, that was the joke. I've been searching all week for the perfect. I got window wanker. That was the best that I came up with, but that's good. He's prepared to rule, to reign over King's. Oh man. Okay. Well. You're welcome. Yeah, we'll work on the meme. I'll get with King in the North. And so love wins in this episode. And wow, what an episode. Says different kind of glam. Yeah, I really loved all the Rhaenyra Daemon dialogue. I like how they developed it over the episode. They were looking at each other at the funeral, and they finally get to talk. I like how Rhaenyra confronted him about leaving her because he's left her twice now. So I really liked that. That was a needed thing for her to say. And I like what Daemon said. You were a kid. I didn't run. I was sparing you, essentially. But neither one of their lives have gone well. And I really like that line from Rhaenyra. Look what my life has become without you. So they definitely are playing up the idea that these two are destined for each other. We've seen that coming the whole episode. The whole season, I would say. Brian Fontana says, because dragons and dope live streams cost money to produce. They do, Brian. They do. But yes, feel free to send in your questions, too, if you'd like. Or just money. That works. That works also. Where is my mute button? There it is. I need to get this all set up. So, yeah, going back to Aemond. Aemond was... I think Aemond's going to have to be my hero of the week. He claimed Laena. He claimed Nanny Vhagar. And I really did like the communication there. Of course, you can't climb up on Vhagar while she's sleeping. Of course, she had to wake up and take a look. The thing is that dragons want to be ridden. They want to burn things, especially Vhagar. She loves to burn things. She's old, but she does love to burn and crush. And so yeah, she's looking for a rider, and you could see how brave Aemond was. He used his dragon commands. Just to walk down there was brave. So yeah, definitely loved Aemond, hero of the week. Also, I very much liked the Laenor twist ending. I'm not sure who the hero is. They're kind of all heroic for pulling that off. I like how they slow played it. They overlaid the conversation of Daemon and Rhaenyra so that it was a little ambiguous as the scene developed. So they made you think, oh, are they really paying someone off to kill Laenor? But that didn't seem right. That never seemed right. I never wanted to believe that was what happened in the book. So the Kiri means like heal or something like that. Doharis means serve, and the Kiri means like it's some sort of obedience command, I believe. But I forget exactly what it was. Yeah, I think it's simmer down now. I think it's simmer down now. I think that's what it is. So Laenor, Nettle's father. That's way spoilery. But we've always been wondering who Nettles' parentage would be ever since they made the Valerians black, because Nettles is obviously a darker skin tone person. So we'll see if they build a connection with Nettles and somebody on Driftmark. But that's getting out ahead. So we'll have to see. I do like the idea that when they were when Viserys was being told about the pink dread prank, and he's like, oh, he thought they had found some wild dragon and lured it to the dragon pit. And I was like, oh, it's kind of foreshadowing of claiming the wild dragons. Brennan says Aemond also cares about Helaena and was the one to settle down the situation after his mom pulled the knife. Even Otto recognized his shrewdness. Yeah, that's another good observation. He did kind of settle down the situation. He waited. He also didn't. He was pretty smart. Okay, so Aemond was looking at his mom, and he could have said, my mom's the one who told me the treason. But he cleverly threw Aegon under the bus, knowing that Aegon would be judged more mercifully, being a kid. It's less bad than throwing Alicent under the bus. That was smart. I think he did do that intentionally. So yeah, Aemond is shrewd, and he's much more clever than his brother. Helaena was awesome too. We'll get to Helaena in a second. Is Otto hand again? Yes, absolutely. That's just, it happened in between episodes. They foreshadowed it though, if you think about it. Because that was the whole point. With that conversation with Larys and Alicent. Alicent was like, I wish my father was here. He would take my side. And the next scene was Larys setting the plan in motion to kill Lionel and Harwin. So that Otto would be recalled as hand. That was the plan. Yeah, Rhaenyra was pretty heroic. What was Helaena saying about the weaving? She was saying something about a dragon weaving a dragon of thread or something like that.
Dragon of flesh weaving a dragon of thread.
Yeah, a dragon of flesh and a dragon of thread, something like that. Well, obviously we'll go back and get the exact words, but yeah, well, it's I'm very curious to. I'm not sure, and she was repeating it too, so it's almost like some words that she heard in a dream. It's not just some random babbling, it's like she's repeating it like a mantra. So she's really shook by the tapestries. That's what it is. She's like, the dragons, they were wrestling and weaving. The dragons were weaving. They were weaving. Bad thoughts out, good thoughts in. The threads that hang off Vhagar. Oh, that's an interesting idea, Roberta JM, Subsquisher member. That's interesting. Yeah, and so we found out why all the ropes are hanging down from Vhagar, so you can climb up there. That was easy enough to figure out if we had thought about it, so that was pretty cool. Let me just go back. I think I missed a super chat. I missed heaps. Okay, well, I'll use the Google Doc then. The vow ceremony scene got me crying. I'm getting married next month, so that was beautiful to me. Yeah, it was. The wedding was awesome, for sure. I don't like that Laenor is alive. Biased black directors. Is that a joke? I would like that person removed, please. I don't like that.
Who said that?
I don't know, but it's somebody in the chat, and I don't like that they are not alive, but present in my chat. That's what I don't like. I think Helaena was referring to the dragons of flesh, Aegon and Rhaenyra, creating their dragons of thread, their future altered banners. Oh, okay. That's pretty good, Heart of Winter. I will say about Laenor, choosing not to kill Laenor was a good choice. I do think that when you have this condensed storyline that's over 30 years put down into one season, there was definitely a risk of running afoul of an ugly trope, which is known as bury your gays, and it's just having to do with the trope that so many gay characters are always in these tragic events and they end up dead. And we saw obviously Joffrey Lonmouth, that happened with Joffrey. So yes, this makes a lot more sense. It made sense for everybody involved, and I think it was true to the characters. As far as like Rhaenyra and Daemon wanted to marry each other, but Daemon wouldn't really want to kill Laenor. They served together in war, as well as being related. And Rhaenyra and Laenor have been raising kids together. So obviously Rhaenyra wouldn't be trying to kill Laenor. That was never believable. So I always thought in the story that it was either the Maesters or Khal Corey being self-interested. So the idea that they faked the death, that's cool. We haven't had a lot of fake deaths in A Song of Ice and Fire. We've had all these hidden paternities and baby swaps and things, but not a lot of fake deaths. There's been a lot of fake death theories. There's John Connington and obviously Rhaegar, who's Mance Rayder. No, I'm kidding. No, Rhaegar's really dead. That's the point. Rhaegar's dead. All those fake death theories are generally wrong.
Rhaegar's the Night King.
No, Rhaegar's not the Night King. Rhaenyra's the Night King, because Rhaenyra got cut by the same knife that Night King got cut by, so Rhaenyra's the Night King. Confirmed. I'm not reading enough of Nettle's comments in the chat. What kind of horrible things is she saying? Let's see. Where is she? No, Nettles is in the chat.
Oh, there.
Fuck that wedding. The Rhaena, Baela, Jace, and Luke had just lost their parents the day before. Why make them watch?
Yeah, true.
Well, but was it the next day, though? I think that's like maybe a time-lapse thing. Like, I don't know that it was supposed to be the next day. I wasn't paying attention to the clues about the passing of the days, but yeah. Well, my main thought was like, I hope they told Rhaenys that her son's not really dead. I don't see why they wouldn't, though. I see why they wouldn't tell her beforehand, because they want her to react honestly to help sell it. But yeah, I would think that they would tell Corlys and Rhaenys afterward. Maybe we'll get some exposition on that in the future. We did get exposition on Rhaenyra's choice to have her kids with Harwin. That I really appreciated that. And when I was editing my video this week and looking at all the scenes with Jace and Harwin, I came very close to crying. I didn't cry, but my there was like some quivering up in the corner of the tear duct. It was definitely a lot of father-son stuff with Jace and Harwin last week. Wish there was more, but it was definitely there. And I liked the idea that Rhaenyra's talking. I like the way she talked about Harwin and Laenor to Daemon. It made sense that Rhaenyra would tell Daemon all this. That's the only person she would ever be honest with, in a sort of really vulnerable way. So I really liked that exposition. It helps to understand what happened. So Laenor and Rhaenyra did try to have kids as many times as they could, and it didn't really work. Of course, that makes sense. It's hard to get pregnant. It doesn't just happen. When you're a teenager, that's what you're worried about. It seems, the parents tell you, if you have sex one time, you get AIDS and you'll get 3 triplets all at once. Sorry, I grew up a conservative Christian. In the sort of South, adjacent Virginia. So that's how it sounded. But point is, it's hard to get pregnant. So it's realistic. They tried. It didn't work. You can only try so many times when you're obviously not even attracted to that gender. So he did give it a whirl. That's cool. That makes sense that he would try to do his duty. And then, of course, eventually they settled on Harwin as a surrogate because she loved Harwin, as opposed to bringing in a third person that looked more like Laenor to be a surrogate, which is something we talked about. So I liked the way they explained that. That was believable. And I like the way that the dialogue played out in that very tense scene where Rhaenyra's essentially having to say, how dare they call them bastards and stuff. And you can see the awkward situation. Remember, I said it's kind of a king that the emperor wears no clothes situation. And you saw that in this situation, where all Aegon had to say was everyone knows, and it was just silent. And it's like, what can Viserys say? He didn't really have much to say. He just kind of ordered everyone to make up. And that's also very true to the feel of the books at this point in the story. Viserys is just trying to keep a lid on something that's clearly boiling up. And he's forcing everyone to get along, but it's not. Nobody's really pretending. And you could see the war. You could see the battle lines literally in the room. The Greens on one side and Corlys and Daemon and Rhaenyra on the other. The parents have got their protecting their kids pose. A lot of feels on this one. A lot of feels. They didn't explain sea smoke. Yeah, well, they will when it's time for somebody else to ride sea smoke. Trey Diaz, this was my number 1 episode so far. Went through 3.5 Modelos. I was cursing everyone out. That sounds like you had a good time, Trey. Very good. Praise Garth. Sunfire not gold confirmed. I guess Sunfire was in there somewhere, right? I didn't... Right, would have been flying away. I didn't pick out which one was Sunfire. I was so distracted by Vhagar's massive wings. By the way, a new way to get banned on my channel, complaining that Vhagar's too small. Instant ban. Vhagar's not too small. You will respect your nanny. Insta-ban. That's right. Vhagar's huge. And I love her they're sort of like Brontosaurus giant cow mooing sounds, In fact, I have a Brontosaurus doll named Bronte, and there's a little bit of a Vhagar type face here. So I'll just set Bronte here, watching out for the microphone. Perfect. Okay, Bronte, all right. No, he was not. Thank you. Yeah, so Corlys's brother Aemond he's been edgy a couple times. Aemond has been edgy a couple times. The first time was when they were at war, and he was talking mad shit about Daemon loudly where everyone could hear. And so now, again, he's talking about the trueborn Valerians and the blood running thick and all that stuff. So, does Vhagar suffer from dwarfism? Careful. I'm assume that's a well-meaned troll, but be careful. Respect your Nana, that's right. If I wore my hat to the table, my Nana would just bop it right off. Okay? You don't cross Nana. Aemond, that dude. Rhetorical. Yeah, Aemond is awesome. Forget about the book version. Just watch a TV show. TV show Aemond is good. We're on Team Aemond right now. He's a spirited lad. And you could see he came back full of piss and vinegar after he had claimed Vhagar, too. He's like, I will roast you with my dragon. I will feed you to my dragon. I will take on all four of you. He was definitely, that was good because that's what we've seen in the books. When somebody claims a dragon, it makes them physically and emotionally stronger. So yeah. Yeah, I literally put Vhagar watching over the chat right here so that y'all mind your manners. Don't wear your hat to the table. And be respectful of Nana Vhagar. And I know I've been promising new memes. I need to. I'm sorry. I'm derelict. Crippler's Iced. Disappointing direction. What was it say? Bad lighting and sound. Well, I mean, the show's too dark all around. I'm not sure why. The sound was really good for me. I mean, I like the Vhagar sounds. But yes, way too dark. I don't know why it's so dark. They fixed almost everything else about Game of Thrones that we didn't like. I loved the fake death of Laenor, Jackie says. So many places we can go with this. Do we think Laenor will come back and ally himself with Daemon and Rhaenyra when Dance of the Dragons begins? Oh, that's an interesting question. Probably not. That would change the plot a lot. And if you know Fire and Blood, think about the dragon and everything that happens with the dragon. So probably not. That's probably it. It's instead of him dying, he's going to go live a happy gay life in Essos with Carl Corey. So... honestly, there's so many bad endings in this story. I really I'm fine with giving one or two characters a happier ending than what they got. I'm totally fine with that. And I think it's a smart move also. You could cut the tension in this episode with a knife. Yeah, Minty was on edge next to me, that's for sure. Okay, going back to the doc. So if I missed your super chat. Yeah, okay, so that's exactly Daemon. So shout out to the nameless Valerian house guard or servant that was killed in place of Laenor. May he rest in peace. So it's still not totally clean. I guess while we're being happy for Laenor and stuff, we should acknowledge that Daemon did another murder. So what became of Sea Smoke then? Well, Girl Nuddles, I don't want to spoil it. But, oh, right. Oh, okay, I understand your question. Sea Smoke should still be bonded to Laenor. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe you can... I don't know. I'll have to ponder that. I guess there's no answer to that. That's a question they've created. So, yeah, the body in the fire was the servant that Daemon killed that looked like Laenor, about the right height. So it's kind of like when they killed the Miller's sons, when Theon killed the Miller's sons and burned them and passed them off as Bran and Rickon. Yeah. So yeah, the Sea Smoke question needs to be addressed, but we don't know what it is yet. So Trey said, I'd spent most of this episode cursing everyone out until that shocking ending. Yeah, so the ending was good. But wow, I loved this episode. Yeah, I love the villainy too. Alicent is becoming a great villain. I love it. I was defending her when she was innocent, and now that she's got the teeth out, I'm cheering for the villainy. So, they're just good characters. And by the way, we only got 3 minutes until my special guest, maybe 5 minutes since we started late, but that's it. So let me get these questions. Do you think Laena will come back as Adam? He just left Sea Smoke. Well, there's a theory, I guess. I mean, that doesn't... Everybody would recognize him. But maybe they'll change that plot. Instead of Adam, that's what will happen. That could make sense. Evangelium. Helaena is such a witch. I love her shamanism. Yeah, I'm going to study everything she said and analyze it later this week for sure. Connor says, so Christian Cole was going to take an eye on Alicent's request after the king said no. This is showing how little control the king has in the command to tell Kristen no, and he still tried. Yes. I think Westerling would have stepped in. And you see, when Daemon grabbed Cole, Westerling and the other Kingsguard grabbed him too. So I don't think he would have succeeded. But that's interesting that Alicent tried to flex her muscle like that in defiance of the king. That was a step further than Alicent has gone in the book at this point. But I'm here for it. And how about Otto afterward? Alicent was just starting to feel guilty. And Otto's like, no. 10 out of 10. This is great. That was so Otto. I love that. That was a great scene. And great episode, great videos. Felt like this episode drew the line in the sand for all the factions. Oh, we got somebody coming in. 1 second. Hold 1 second, my treasured guest, and I will give you a proper introduction. Felt like this episode drew the line in the sand for the factions. Yeah, we started a whole war on the beach. We need a new cocktail, war on the beach. We had Daemon and Rhaenyra getting together on the beach, and we had Aemond claiming Vhagar. So we started a lot of trouble. You see why Vhagar lands on the beach, by the way. That landing was rough. That was like a thud. Nanny needs that sand to cushion her old bones. Tommy Freestyle, where was that? Love Aemond claiming Granny. The interaction when he was attempting to just climb on her and the resulting fight. Oh yeah, Aemond hanging on for dear life. Oh, that was sweet. That might be my screen cap for my video. Just him hanging, and then now it turns into screaming. It's kind of like a roller coaster. The scream in terror, it turns into the scream of joy. So that was awesome. Yeah, it's the whole claiming Vhagar scene was awesome. And that's why they didn't show us Laena claiming Vhagar, because they wanted to save it for this scene, which makes sense in retrospect. It was totally epic. So let me bring in my first guest, guys. I wonder who it could be. Yeah, no, you know who it is. It's Heidi from Costume Co. Hello, Heidi.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
The chat is excited. We have 1,100 some people here. That number is always a little delayed, but we got quite the audience. Everyone is excited. So Heidi runs a YouTube channel called Costume Co, where she does very detailed analysis of not just the attire, but sort of a lot of the visual symbolism. It could be the jewelry, the customs, the background stuff. Heidi's very knowledgeable, but Heidi also, not a one-trick pony, loves to talk about the story as well. So Heidi, do not feel like you're pigeonholed into giving us costume analysis, although obviously any tidbits you have is great. And if you follow Heidi on Twitter, or mostly on Twitter, right?
Yes, mostly Twitter.
And what's your handle?
It's Costume Cinemato, which I know sounds weird, but my channel used to be called Costume Cinematographico, but it was such a mouthful I changed it just to Costume Co.
Well, you're easy to find, and if you follow me and you look for her, it'll pop up because we follow each other. But point is, Heidi's always dropping the details on the costumes. She spotted somebody was wearing the same. Was it Laurie's wearing the same fabric as somebody from Game of Thrones? Who was it?
Yes, it was Cersei Lannister. They both had that same sort of scaly, textured fabric. Her costume, I actually called it her rotting from within costume. Like it was sort of like she was just showing like the rot that she had. Now, I think in the case of Larys, it's supposed to be sort of snake-like, snake in the grass. I actually looked at another picture of him today, and if you zoomed in, you can really see that sort of lizard, scaly type texture on him. So
very good. So let me just get a couple people to check the volume. Like one person said you're a little low, Heidi.
Okay. We had that last time. How about now?
That's a little better. That's coming through better. Yeah. And
or I'll move my mic too. How's that?
Okay.
Sorry,
and I
guys.
can adjust on my end a little. So I think that's good. It's looking good.
Okay, cool. I hate having this thing in front of my face because it's a little bit.
Oh, well, you don't need that. You don't need that thing. That's not that important.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I just want to say thanks so much for having me on your show. This is really exciting for me and to meet your viewers too.
Absolutely. Well, it's been I'm always changing my format. And for those of you wondering, Girl Nettles and Tim, of course, will be back. I think I'm going to do something either Thursday or Saturday with them. And we did a great stream last Saturday. Saturday night, I'm either gonna be going solo or rotating in some people. There's a bunch of people that I've been meaning to get on, including my next guest who will be buzzing in any moment, I'm sure. Let me just triple check that I sent. I did. Okay, yeah. So in their own good time, our third guest will be joining us. So yeah, we keep it loose. In any case. Costume Co.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention to you, I just been thinking about this all day. All day I've been kind of thinking about it. We went for a nice long walk, and I've been thinking about Larys, and I know he didn't really have a big part in this episode, right? It was mostly last week that he had sort of his big moment. But I was thinking about there were some pictures of him where it's clear that he's in purple, And I was trying to, oh, and see, and it just came to me. It just popped in my head. I was like, why purple? Like purple is like a royal color. But it also can be a sign of ambition. It can be, but then I thought that's sort of like, an MC Universe type villain color, like the villain. But I don't think that they have it such like a bright, vibrant purple as to say, oh, this is the villain. It's sort of a, pulled back a little bit. So I thought, along with having that sort of scaly texture on his costume, we talked about this actually, when you were on my show, we talked about the Firefly. And I found a really great picture. I posted it on Twitter this week. His buttons actually had flies, right?
Oh, the buttons have flies. Okay.
The buttons have flies. And someone said, now, to be fair, they kind of look like a common housefly. But I said, well, no, because in his cane, and then I think there was a brooch, it was clearly a firefly. But I do love the idea that it could be a fly, like a fly on the wall, like as one of my viewers had mentioned. So I thought that was a really interesting idea about Laris. I know you say how do you say it? I like the way you say it.
I say all the YS like a Greek name, so Lares and Vares. I was very excited when somebody said his name Lares last week. But of course,
yes.
George Martin says you could say the names however you want, so there's no right or wrong, and all the arguing is only for fun. So as long as we all know that, we can argue about, because I heard you say it. If you say Laris and Varys, you end up saying anus.
Yeah, because
and I don't.
Yeah,
like
I had
that.
a viewer who gave me a hard time that I said Rhaenys instead of Rhaenys, and I said, but it rhymes with anus. So I've always said it Aenys, Rhaenys, and we were saying they're sort of like Greek names like Skene. Scene is Skene in theater. So myself being from a theater background, I always sort of go back to those terms. So. Yeah, that's how I kind of like to do it.
I think I was thinking of like the sword of Damocles.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like Aristophanes or something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of names.
Or Socrates,
that guy.
Aristophanes. Exactly, for sure.
So yeah. All right.
So you and I are both of love, have that love, and we also have the love of dark as well. So we'll have to talk about that at some point.
Yeah, the Heidi is a fellow dark fanatic, guys. For those of you myth heads who know my passionate love of Dark, the greatest TV show. With all due respect, Dark is the best show I've ever watched. So me and Heidi are...
I would probably say I think I have to agree with you on that. I used to think it was Breaking Bad, but now I think Dark probably was the greatest TV series of all time. I think you're right.
I think about it constantly. I've rewatched it 4 times, and it's the only show I've ever watched that has the depth of a George Martin book. Like the amount, but let's not totally tank the stream. We'll do that a different time, Heidi.
We will, for sure.
But
and
okay.
David and I, we've just gotten to know each other, so I think we've become fast friends.
Yes, and I've been watching your channel for a minute ever since Minty introduced me to it. So yeah, I identified the similar analysis and thought that this would work pretty well. But so we do hero and villain of the week around here, and I named my hero of the week. Who was it, guys? I've already forgotten. Aemond. Aemond for valor and wisdom and courage and talking some shit and punching a girl. I'm kidding. We're not saying that's heroic. But he did get attacked 4-on-1 and he held up pretty good. So Aemond, with sort of a nod to everybody involved in the free Laenor caper, except for that they killed an innocent person also, because it's Game of Thrones and nothing's ever too happy. So I will hero or villain of the week, whichever you want to start on. But who do you got?
Oh my God, I don't know. I think I'm going to say Otto Hightower is the villain of the week.
Well, it's actually called the Otto Hightower Villain of the Week Award.
Oh, okay, so I can't name him.
Because we would just give it to Otto every week. Although he did return. It was the return. It was Otto reborn. His hair's more windswept now,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fair though. I don't want to just make you search. No, that's
I guess I'd have to go with Allison then. I don't know. That's like a real obvious one.
She did pull a knife in open court and slash Rhaenyra and also demand that, Lucerys' eye. Of course, Rhaenyra also demanded that Aemond be put to sharp questioning, which is usually a euphemism for torture. She's talking about a 9-year-old, so not clear what she meant exactly, but it's definitely both mothers like showing the teeth there. And that's mostly straight from the books, too. It's very close to the books, except for the actual fight, which didn't involve Bela and Rhaena. But I kind of thought it made sense that it did.
Mm-hmm. And then what was the one, the hero
yes.
of the week? Oh,
yes.
my gosh. I'm going to say Rhaenys. I mean, she didn't do anything particularly heroic, but I was totally on side with everything she said.
Well, she did have the protective mother pose of all the kids going on in the room. In fact, all the parents were kind of doing it.
Yeah, she's a wonderful, like, grandmother, mother. I really root for her. And I was kind of sad, actually, about the sort of what was going on between her and Corlys.
Well, I was about to say, serving up the truth is also heroic in its own way. And we've seen this developing where she's been questioning Corlys's motives and sort of kind of getting him to face it himself, I think. But, because we saw it when they were marrying Laenor to Rhaenyra, and she talked about putting their son in danger, and they're talking about the throne, and she's like, I'm over it. And he's like, I'm not, So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I was wondering if I could talk to you a bit about this week is, I mean, this is your show, so you can do whatever you want.
No, take it away.
But I wanted to talk to you about some of the color, because I know we touched on that a little bit last week when you came on my show. What did you think about the use of color? Well, and also how dark the show was this week, too. Like actually, Miguel Sapochnik was director.
Well, I had to stop and turn the brightness up, even more. I just don't understand why they make everything so dark. I only have complaints about that. I love the TV show dark. I do not like how dark House of the Dragon is. And I also don't like when they tint everything green. Like I sit here in Photoshop, I make the same adjustments every time. I just turn down the green and turn up the red and blue and yellow and various shades and highlights and shadows. And it's like, oh, there it is. I don't know.
Yeah, so I didn't get to see all of the costumes in their beautiful, like, glory, that I would. And they were doing some day for night stuff. So I was like, oh, I want to really see what this looks like. But I did think it was interesting just in terms of the funeral because, it's Westerosi, tradition to have everyone wear black. And they did that actually for Emma's funeral. So I thought it was really interesting that everyone was like, nope. F that, we're going to do the colors we want. I thought that was a really interesting thing. And I was thinking about last week, like Helaena was wearing sort of like pinky colors, but her and her brothers were both, most definitely in green this week. So I thought that was an interesting choice. What did you think about that?
Well, I didn't notice it until you just pointed it out to me. But now that you have, I would say that this is probably just intending to play up the battle lines being drawn because that was kind of what was happening this week in almost every scene, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know. And it was funny because I think we were talking about this last week that, about the boat, I think I was feeling a little bit like, wow, we're really moving into the color. Like we're really moving into it with Alicent. And it was funny. I've named her this dress that she wore in this episode, Slippery When Wet, because it is kind of like a wet look cloque fabric, which is sort of like a brocade. And I love the song Slippery When Wet from Bon Jovi. Like I love Bon Jovi. So I thought that worked well. But also she's kind of slippery a little bit, right? She's sort of, she's not quite trustworthy and so on.
Well, we saw that with the Larry Strong thing where she's already adjusted. Like she was, oh my goodness. Oh, I can't believe you did that last week. Like skin crawling. And now she's all like, that's not needed right now, but give me your business card,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Also, discretion. Maybe stop staring at me at the wedding. Okay. Discretion.
Yeah, he was a little bit like, he was a little bit like Laris was a little bit too happy. Like he was a little bit too.
He needs to be reined in. He's out of control.
He needs to be reined in a bit. Yeah,
body language.
He needs to be reined in a bit. Well, I was saying that before that I thought like Alicent. I'm like, oh my God, she's kind of gone full on. Are they going to pull her back? And it did seem like they did pull her back a bit this week.
Well, again, what I thought was funny was that just when she's in her room feeling some remorse, her dad comes along and is like, oh, no, that's great. That's great. That's the fire. You can win the game with that.
He was touching his brooch at the beginning. He was like, oh, yeah, look at me. I'm back. I'm back, everybody.
Yeah, you could see that riposte with Daemon where he's, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, which basically what he was really saying was, I'm back, bitch. And Daemon's
Yeah.
like, the leech is back. Yeah, I see you, leech, still hungry. So I love that Daemon's like absolutely no pretense there.
Yeah. You probably talked about this. What did you think about the giggle he did at the wedding? Or sorry, at the funeral, I should say.
The what?
Daemon kind of did a little bit of a giggle just before they put Laena's body.
It was
into
just,
the
I
water.
forget what the line he was responding to, but it was just too much bullshit. You know, and he can't stand bullshit. So it was just like there was line after line from Aemond that was very pretentious, and he just was one too many, and he was like, whatever, dude. So
Yeah, it was like the Princess Bride. We were doing that last time. We were like, marriage is when two people come together. And he's like, yes, man and wife, man and wife.
same man and wife. It's nice.
Yeah.
I'm thankful not to be the only one making the marriage joke this week. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Heidi.
I love the marriage joke.
So
Peter-
real
I think
quick, a
that's
couple
Peter
super
Cook.
chats that have gone by. I thought Kristen said no to taking an eye, responding, I am your protector only to Alicent, and only step forward when Rhaenyra and Alicent were locked in with the dagger. I have to rewatch that. I can understand that reading. There's a lot happening pretty fast. So okay, Minty says that's also what she saw. Okay. He thought about it at least.
Oh, are you talking about are you talking about Krispy Kreme who when he was like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah, she's like, bring me his donut hole. And he's like, nah. He said, as your protector or something.
Yes, as your protector, yes.
I thought he was getting ready to obey her, but they're saying that he was clarifying that he's only the protector.
Yeah.
So.
I think he was kind of unsure about what to do there.
I mean,
I was having...
Yeah,
Sorry,
that was a tough situation. He's like, really? In front of everyone? You want me to go stab that kid? Really? Like, that's insane.
I know, and he'd have to get through the princess as well to do it. That would be the other thing.
Right. And
Yeah.
everyone else standing around that might have a problem with that. So that was definitely Alicent losing it a bit, for sure. But we've seen that build up coming just because everyone's sitting there pretending, and she's like just, become obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's understandable.
David, I was thinking about you today when I was loading my dishwasher, and I was thinking about Joffrey when he was, decided that he wanted Ned Stark's head, and he's like, bring me his head. And I was imagining him just standing in front of the mirror practicing that. Like, can you imagine him doing that? I was thinking about, because just came to my mind today. I'm thinking he probably had that whole thing planned, ahead of time. And he was just thinking, I'm going to practice that in front of the mirror.
Ahead.
So I don't know why I came back. I thought about that.
How did you know about? How did
Sorry,
you know
go
about my very intense passion for correct dishwasher sorting? That you were thinking about me while you were doing your. That's.
Yes.
My reputation precedes me.
Okay, and so if anybody's wondering, why was I thinking about Joffrey? The reason why I was thinking about Joffrey is because when we were having our discussion last time, we were talking about why did Alicent dress, or why are the boys dressed in green? And someone said, oh, it's because Alicent would have dressed them that way. And then I started thinking about the first season of Game of Thrones and recalling that, yes, the young Baratheon children were all in all in Lannister red. So that's what made me think about Joffrey standing in front of the mirror practicing bring me his head. That's what made me think about that. So actually, and they do sort of like lean in a little bit to the Baratheons before Robert dies, but once he dies, it's just completely gone. They completely get rid of it. Oh, I can't hear you, David. Sorry. David, I can't hear you.
That was a classic LML mute. Sorry, it's now the chat will catch up and let me know that I was muted. Here we go. Here, watch it. It'll be like 500. They'll roll by. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. So I was just saying it happens in the story, too. Different people choose to play up their heritage more or less. Like Rhaenyra quarters her sigil with the Arryn for her mom because she dearly loves her mother. Other people would just have a Targ sigil. Some Targaryens modify the Targ sigil with different color. Like Aegon II modifies his sigil with a golden dragon because his dragon is Sunfire the Golden. So, yeah. See, they're still
Yeah, and
coming.
I'll be interested to see one of the things, because I think I mentioned to you like the Kingsguard. It's not super crazy about the Kingsguard, but I was thinking about what you said to me, and I'll be interested to see how what will happen with that, like how when the factions split up, what will happen with the Kingsguard armor.
Oh yeah, they might change it. And just so you're wondering, chat, Minty observed that the Kingsguard armor looks very much like a binding. They got these cross-wrapping layers, and they look like they're weaving underneath one another. So it really looks like bandages wrapped around. So too for the forearm stuff. So it seems like meant to symbolize their binding of their oaths. No, we can't do a mute compilation. It would just be me talking like a mime in different outfits.
You'd have to put music over top of it. You know, some kind of beatbox music or something.
Yeah, it would be, what's that song that they play with the guys with the coffin? They do the dance with the coffin. Maybe be that one. Anyways.
I don't know. Well, but speaking of, like, you were talking about this sort of the wrapping or whatever, I was thinking it also kind of reminds me of the chevrons. They use chevrons like all the time, like Game of Thrones, like the White Walkers have chevrons. Daenerys Targaryen had chevrons. And the chevron was actually used by the Greeks, like in the movie 300, if you guys saw that, the Spartans. And
Heidi, let me ask you, did you catch the symbol, the person that married Daemon and Rhaenyra? Some sort of priest, they were doing it in Valyrian. The guy was speaking Valyrian. He had a sigil. Like, was he a pyromancer? Was that the dragon keeper when they're wearing their nice clothes? Like, who was that?
You know what? I'm not sure, but I am pretty sure that their wedding clothes are like a very old, like old Valyrian style clothing, and the blood oath that they did, and her headpiece, which was a little bit whack. Like, it was kind of crazy. Like, cause they were only showing like close-up pictures of her. Like, she had the 2 tassels. So at first I thought, oh, it's going to be maybe something kind of Victorian, but then it was like a big thing like that. But I was reading today,
I thought it was perfectly uncomfortable in a vintage clothing is sometimes awkward kind of way, actually.
It is, yeah. So it's like something that would have been passed down. And so I was reading today, for instance, she was talking about that fealty gown that Rhaenyra wears, and I had found some close-up pictures of it. And she'd said that, you know, it's definitely like has a Byzantine sort of inspiration. And she was talking about those halos, you know, so that's what I think she was going with, you know, the halos that you see in the Empress pictures. So that's what I think, maybe that was sort of going with that. But also there was sort of like Russian style headpieces that I've seen, kind of historical pieces that kind of look like that. So I thought it was really interesting. But the fact that they were wearing matching ensembles. So that's what my eyes were kind of focusing on.
Well, so yeah, it definitely, the headpiece reminded me of the thing Rhaenyra wore when she was coronated, not coronated, but made
I
the
just
heir
call
or
it
whatever.
like swearing fealty.
Yeah.
I call it her fealty ensemble. I don't know what you guys call it, but.
And it makes sense that the clothes were like, they weren't in the Targaryen colors because the Targaryen adopted those colors when Aegon conquered, and they made a sigil at that point. So before that, Valyrian clothes wouldn't be black and red. They would be.
No, I love
like a
that.
Cream satin kind of.
I love that. I love them. And I love the ritual and the binding of the hands, which actually is sort of a marriage pact. They did that. We saw that with Rhaegar and Laena when they got married, that they wrapped their hands in ribbons. So I love that. But the dragon glass was a really interesting thing. My husband was making jokes about it. He was like, stop kissing me, my lip is split or something.
So real quick, Heidi, I've got a couple super chats I want to get, and then I want to bring in my other guest who is in the green room here. Let's see. Are you still highlighting the ones I haven't read?
No, I've lost track. I'm sorry.
Okay. Laurie's and Alicent total BFFs now. Does he hold as much sway as Otto with her at this point? No, I think we saw the relationship at the end where Laurie's just needed to be acknowledged and needed some orders. So once Alicent was like, no, don't do that, but you did a good job, and I will need you in the future, he was like, okay, that works for me. So he just wants to be treated. He's looking for more power. He wants to be the master of whisperers, I would say. There are several questions. Let me go ahead and bring in Tony so we can just answer these together. Also, someone is commenting repeatedly, and I need to address it. Vhagar flew in front of the moon with Aemond, and that is just like in the books. Visenya at one point rides Vhagar, and they fly in front of the moon, and it says the moon turns the color of blood. like it was an eclipse, which is just one of my favorite lines, obviously.
Well, we also saw Dany and Jon, I think, fly up in front of the moon. Did they in the Game of Thrones?
Yeah, they did. They gave a nod to that too. This was just even more spot on since it was Nanny Vhagar. But let me go ahead and bring in my second guest. You all will know exactly who this is as soon as you see him. You all know the Don, Tony Teflon. Say hello.
What's going on, man? Thank you for having me, Heidi. Thanks. Great to be with you.
Hi, Tony.
And this is a great surprise to have Heidi and everyone else here.
And of course, you
So
guys
nice to
have
see
streamed together before and know each other. So
Yeah, many a time.
Yes, I'm a
So-
big fan of Tony.
So we're all family here, just so everybody knows. No strangers. Don't need to take any time getting warmed up or anything like that. So, of course, Tony has one of the longest running Song of Ice and Fire YouTube channels, Teflon TV, although he covers a lot of other things as well. And he also does a weekly pregame stream, basically 2.5 hours before the show every Sunday. So definitely check that out if you aren't already.
Yep, with Bridge 4 and Fill the Issues guy. So that's,
And
really
occasionally Nanny Vhagar.
Yep, and Nanny Vhagar shows up and makes great appearances too.
So, Tony, I was just, we do Hero and Villain of the Week, and we already gave ours. I threw out Aemond as a hero and as villains. We've had...
As a hero?
Yeah, man, it was courageous lad, stood up to 4 people, claimed Nana, rode Nana.
Yeah. I mean, we talked... I mean, me and Phil and Bridge talked about this off screen a little bit, and he was saying, like, how he cheered for somebody so hard when he was going to claim that dragon, and as soon as it was over, he hated his guts again. And that's the way he made him feel. So I'm probably on that, when he was going, I'd never seen anyone like claim a dragon. It's the first time we ever really got to see exactly how it goes down and stuff, So for that reason, I was all into it. But after that, I don't like the kid whatsoever. So
Tony, let me get you to adjust your camera slightly. With 3 people, it's a very thin window, and you're
let me see.
You're drifting off to the. You need to lean to your left or move the camera a little bit so that.
I have so many things here open. Let me shut some things down so I can see exactly.
Maybe just move your stool then.
All right, there we go.
Or your chair. Oh, you got a gaming chair back there.
Oh, I got the chair. Let's see my chair.
Oh, you got a Secret Labs chair. I got one of those too. I got a House of the Dragon one. You got the Targaryen one. So shout out to Secret Labs. They sent it to me for free. So
I got mine too.
Nice. It's honestly the nice. I hate chairs. I use a standing desk, and it's like the thing is, it's like they ripped it out of a Tesla. I rode in a Tesla this week, and I was like, these chairs kind of similar. Honestly, it's really nice.
No, this chair is amazing. I mean, I really can't say, anything terrible about this chair. This is an amazing chair. I mean, I'm just happy to have it. In all honesty.
Heidi, was there something you were saying about the chevrons that got lost, or did you finish that?
I was just saying that they were used a lot in Game of Thrones, and so that chevron, which is sort of like a protective symbol. It's sort of a protective symbol, and so we saw it on Dany, and we saw it on, obviously, it's a crisscross kind of chevron, but it is still sort of a protective symbol. As someone was saying in the chat, it's lambda upside down. So if it's like this way, it's like the roof of a house.
Right.
So
okay, that makes sense. Makes sense.
And you see it a lot in military use, like on shields. Like you see it in like armor. You see it in, like we see it in the crown. That sort of like Celtic sort of crisscross hatch thing. So I just wanted to mention that was also in Game of Thrones, because there's a lot. I'm noticing a lot of repetition from Game of Thrones. I don't know if you guys are.
Visually, they're making it feel like a similar world, even while changing the mood and feel of the show, I would say a little bit,
Absolutely. I raised myself up because I felt like I was down here. So that I could be up there with you boys.
No, perfect. What did you say, Tony?
Yeah, I think it's smart for them to do that to keep fans, a lot, especially people who haven't read the books, keep them engaged and let them know that we're in the same world. And this is just an easy way for them to do that by tying in a certain costumes. Not even though Heidi would tell you that, styles do change, but some things are iconic and last through generations and stuff. So I like the way they tie in everything.
Cool. Well, Tony, this shot of Hennessy is actually both of you guys drink on the streams like a lot. You guys are both drinkers.
I do, but I'm not
smoking,
tonight. I'm not tonight, but I will on my Tuesday stream.
You guys both drink a lot.
There's no peer pressure. I'm just saying.
I'm a bit of an alcoholic.
I got Thug Mug is always in hand, so I'm with you.
Awesome.
Well, Tony, you got a whole selection behind you, so I mean,
Oh, I got Hennessy. I got pure white Hennessy that you can't get in the United States.
Tony's ready to entertain if you stop by. If you know where he lives,
Yeah, I got you. If you come over here,
Well, and if you have the courage to approach the front door, kind of like approaching Vhagar, not for the faint of heart.
Exactly.
I was going to say there's a really great comment here, if you wouldn't mind me reading, David. It says, I think using the costumes to ground the series in the existing world is smart. And I think that's absolutely true. And I talk a lot about this because when I say something about the costumes being authentic and feeling real to this world, and then sometimes people will say, well, it is a fantasy, so it shouldn't really matter. And I'm like, no, because this particular world, this world of Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire, of Westeros, they have made the rules. They've created a particular world, whether it be Middle Ages or there might be some slight, Renaissance, Elizabethan, Tudor influences. It still has to be sort of grounded in the world, and that's what I think has made this show really successful, especially in the design, compared to say maybe some other fantasy type shows that don't do it as well. So that's one of the things I often hammer home when I talk about the costumes.
Well, it just saves time to use the meanings that are already associated with symbols from the real world. And George definitely does that too. That's why I tell people, like, the flaming sword that Lightbringer, it's a little bit lightsaber. It's a little bit the Archangel's sword. It's a little bit Elric's sword. It's all of it's Excalibur. It's all those things. It's meant to evoke all those stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, he was a big fan of the Dragon Slayer movie, and if you ever watched that movie, Dragon Slayer, you can see that they have a weapon that's sort of have a sword that flames and has green flame. Also, the character in there is named Tyrion. The main villain of that is named Tyrion. The dragon that's in there, he took that name, used that dragon's name for one of his dragon Verso Max or something like that. I forgot what it was, but he took that. And the main character in there, her name is Valerian, and she's a woman who dresses up like a boy throughout the movie. So he took a lot of things from
Wow. That's like the first time I watched Gray Area's video about the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn influences in A Song of Ice and Fire, and you're just like, gee whiz. But yeah, George, that's the thing about George, is that he borrows from so many people. You can't accuse him of plagiarizing from anyone,
No, he said, I'm sorry, Heidi. I know he said once, if you take from one person, it's copying. If you take from many people, it's research. And he says,
exactly,
I like
right.
it. And he said, I do a lot of research.
That's right. I remember that line now.
No, I was just going to say, Tony, and I came across this again actually this week, is that there's a color called Tyrian purple, which is a Phoenician color. And I always think that's really, really neat. And it's sort of a red purpley color. So sometimes we see that obviously in Game of Thrones used. And I just thought, well, that can't possibly be a coincidence. But anyway, I just thought that was a neat little thing there.
Just to throw this out there, we're big fans of Vhagar here, so you can see we've got multiple pictures of Vhagar wherever they are. They're around, and the thing that I made a whole video about Vhagar, and the thing that I tried to stress is that as the biggest dragon, she's kind of like the queen chess piece on the board. And throughout the war, which there's a no spoiler stream, but you guys know war is coming, and the other side always has to think about Vhagar. It's like, oh, we could do this, we could try that. We have so many dragons. Oh, but they have Vhagar. Oh, we can't do that. So Otto saw that tonight when his son claimed Vhagar. You could see the smile You see that, Tony? As soon as he's like, what? Claimed a dragon? He's like, oh, yes.
Oh, that swings the battle on your side, right? So you're basically talking about you have a dragon that could literally take on 3 of these smaller dragons by itself. And that's a huge deal. You know, when it comes down to the actual war that's gonna take place, you know, and that's what you see in this episode. A lot of the war being built up and the people being, you know, the people getting ready for it, and you know, and Alicent, you know, like, you know what, I can do this. This is what it's gonna be. This is what it's gonna be. Now I got somebody in my corner. Now we can do it. We can take these people on. And as I said, if people do not like her or do like her, I think it really comes down to when it comes down to, do you believe her kid's life are really in danger? If you believe that a kid's life are in danger, then you have to say that the stuff she's doing is justified.
Yeah, that you're right that definitely is. A lot of it turns on that. And I think that it's cleverly written, because when you think about Rhaenyra by herself, it's like, nah, Rhaenyra wouldn't do that. And she's not shown us that she would, but Daemon probably would. And the point is that there is a political incentive to do it. So even if Rhaenyra and Daemon never did it, somebody trying to rise in favor, just like Larys, would do it preemptively and then come to them, just like Larys did to Alicent, and be like, I've done this thing that helps you. What do you think? And then they get to go, oh my God. But it's what they wanted. So...
Yeah, did I mention that, by the way, Larys kind of reminds me of Tony Soprano a little bit? Like, you know, there was this one guy in The Sopranos who was like, I'm having problems with my restaurant. Like, I need your help. You know, he goes to Tony. I don't even think he asked Tony for help, but he just mentions it to him. And Tony's answer is just to burn the restaurant down so that he can get the insurance money. And that's sort of what Larys sort of reminds me of. He's like a really heavy-handed, kind of like, you know, like he could have done something a little more. Yeah, like he could have dealt with it a little more subtly, but no, he has to just, like, you know, murder his father and his brother, you know. So that's what. And the same with the, you know, hey, would you like me to take care of, you know, I guess he was gonna Jairus or Jakaris or one of them. He was gonna take out one of their eyes for her. I don't know how that would have gone down, but.
So guys, I've got a bird situation going on. I gotta handle. So give me like 30 seconds, and I'll be right back. Feel free to just take it wherever here.
Okay.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I agree with you, Heidi. When you deal with that situation with him and people trying to rise to power, but is it that the fact that he had nothing promised to him, and the fact that he had to do it? Did he do this to become the Lord of Harrenhal? In the end, was that his game? Or do you think he did it just to really carry favor with them because he wants to be a part of that council?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's more that, like, I went back and I've been reading about Larys a bit, and it always says they weren't quite sure where his loyalties lie, where, you know, what his ambitions were. He's sort of, you know, I was saying earlier, is a bit of a snake in the grass. Like, you're not quite sure what's going on with him. Like, so yeah, I'm hoping that we get a little bit more about him. I'm really kind of excited. He's a really interesting villain, and I'm sort of excited to learn a bit more about him and what's going on. I'm wondering where Massaria is, though, like where she's all, like, what happened to her?
Yeah, I think we'll get something from her in a little bit. But I just think when you deal with this dude, Larys, how could you, if you're someone like, say, you're the queen, and you've seen the length he was willing to go to and destroy his own family? If he's willing to do that to the people he grew up with, the people who raised him, how could you truly trust this person, no matter what he did for you? No matter if he did it for you or not, he took his whole family out. Anyone who's willing to that, I don't know how you can truly trust somebody who would be willing to do that.
Yeah, no, I think she was. I think, like, as David was saying at the end of last episode, I think she was pretty horrified, and then something happened in this episode where, you know, she just sort of was like, oh, wait a second, I could use this.
She adjusted to, well, that's the thing, is that there was a little bit of a, like, you're kidding yourself element to her being so horrified by what Larys did, because it's like, well, you're sitting here telling your son that this is a game of life or death. and that Rhaenyra could put you to death, and that everyone's lives are on the line. And so then Larys is like, well, I took out a couple of your enemies and made a way for your dad to come back to King's Landing to give you everything you want. And she's like, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, you're playing at war. And the same thing goes for Rhaenyra. Obviously, when we talk about her having kids and then trying to lie about it, it's like the repercussions of this are eventually war. If there's a succession crisis, that can lead to war. And of course, that's where this whole thing is going. So when we're watching this unfold, we're supposed to look at everyone's decisions and analyze it as far as, is this leading to war, or is this helping to mitigate the war? So that's why I said the Helaena-Jacaerys proposal was a good one, because that would have bound the houses together and taken away a lot of the incentive for Rhaenyra to want to murder Alicent's children, or for Aegon to want to usurp Jacaerys, because that would be his sister. So House Hightower is not going to back Aegon against Helaena. So yeah, it's a lot of roads not taken in this story. I think
also by killing his brother, he prevented a Littlefinger Ned Stark situation happening to him, right? Because if she had if he had his brother on her side and he was alive, right? This is the guy who controls the City Watch, and you know that he would be down with it. We've seen exactly what happened to Ned Stark when he trusted Littlefinger and he thought that he had the little City Watch on his side, and that eventually led to his downfall because he didn't have the City Watch on his side and Littlefinger betrayed him. So by getting rid of his brother, he prevents that whole situation and allows them to put somebody in his place that is more loyal to them.
Yeah, and Harwin was on Rhaenyra's side, and it seemed like Larys wanted to place his bet on Team Green. So that's also probably part of his thinking in offing his brother and his father. Sanctuary says, loving the stream. Thank you all for giving us your time. Cam Cobain says, unpopular opinion. I like the season already more than season 1 of Game of Thrones. I think a lot of people actually agree with that. It's not that we're saying the Fire and Blood story is necessarily better than A Song of Ice and Fire, but I like the way it's translating onto TV, and I like the more adult, sort of grown-up feel to it.
I was going to say, did you guys notice when after the dust settled after that scene when, Alicent pulled the dagger and then cut Rhaenyra, did you notice when they all sort of moved back, they were all in their factions? So
absolutely.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, I thought.
Where you can see that the only thing holding this thing together is the guy in the middle, Viserys, and he's just like, everybody stop! Just be nice. Okay, we're settled. All right, we're done here. And people are just ready to kill each other. Yeah, so.
I know the way he tried to invite Daemon back to court. And by the way, so apparently he's missing one of his arms.
Yes, his
arm.
Yes,
since last week.
Chatting about that?
Yeah, last week you could see it. It was pinned and his hand was gone. Yeah, and now his face, you could see it. One side of his face is starting to,
It's starting to go. Yeah, and then I think he does wear a mask.
They did show a picture of him with a mask, with a half-face mask on.
I can't wait.
But I was saying, I shared at a tweet this week that even though Viserys was falling apart, his costume this week was so beautiful. It was really gorgeous. I really loved it.
He has the best threads. I go back and forth on whose coat I want. Daemon's Pentos coat right up there. Viserys has 3 coats. Rhaenyra's coat that she's been wearing on the ship, I'd wear that shit.
That's a really nice coat. Actually, it's really funny because I don't know if I told you this, that Rufus Sewell, who I'm a big fan of, and he was in A Knight's Tale, which is one of my favorite movies. He actually commented on Rhaenyra's coat and said that he'd love to have that coat.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And I like how they have been dressing Rhaenyra in not overly feminine ways, because obviously she's getting ready to do a man's job of being the ruling monarch of Westeros and all that. So I thought the costuming has communicated that. Her dragon riding costume is excellent. Everyone loves that one too. Talk Studios says, serious Black Knight Monty Python vibes. Your arm's off. No, it isn't. Although Viserys did acknowledge, how about Daemon? Viserys is like, oh, the gods, tragedy, oh, you just lost your wife, and Daemon kind of is like, at least I don't have leprosy, bitch.
Yeah, dude, you're a mess.
Yeah. And Daemon
yeah,
is kind of
someone's been
vain.
talking about Daemon's burnt skin. I'm not really sure that is.
What's that?
I'm not really sure that that's a thing. I think some people had done some close-ups of Daemon's skin. I think he's just fair, and I don't know.
He had a couple of arrow wounds, if you remember. One was on the collarbone.
I
think he's got a scar on his collar now because of that.
Yeah. I don't. Some people were like, "Oh, he got the leprosy." I'm like, no, I don't think so.
So let me just real quick. I'll throw a couple of these super chats out for you guys to discuss. Is it me or does Rhaenyra in the book feel like a stronger person than she is on the show? I feel like Alicent is more outspoken. I do limited analysis on the book to show changes. I'm mostly just watching the show for what it is. But I think I can agree with that. Alicent is more aggressive in this earlier on, at least, than in the books. And Rhaenyra is a little more, adult Rhaenyra anyways, is a little more calculating. It makes sense to me, though, the way the personalities have developed just on the show. And I will also say that in Fire and Blood, it's hard to know exactly, with Rhaenyra in particular, there is so much slander, it's hard to know what her personality was really like. Did she really say some of the things that they quote her saying in the small council meetings? It's hard to know. But what do you guys think about how Rhaenyra and Alicent's character are coming across? Heidi, go ahead.
Well, now that they've swapped out for Emma, I've noticed just even swapping out the actor, it's already a completely different experience for me. And I think that the way Rhaenyra is portrayed in this, the second half of the season, I think she doesn't really have to say as much. She's very strong. Like a lot of the things, her actions are sort of speaking for her, whereas Alicent is more maybe reactionary. I think Rhaenyra is more sort of, I don't want to say conniving. She's more like thoughtful, I think, in what she plans. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and there also are moments when Rhaenyra is direct and Alicent is oblique. Like Rhaenyra gets the intelligence herself. When she wants a man to sit down, she's just like, Laenor, sit down. Whereas Alicent pats the bench, has Kristen sit down, and then she stands up so that she is now addressing the sitting person. Tony, what do you think about Alicent and Rhaenyra on the show versus like how they felt in the books?
Yeah, I think that Alicent, this character that we're seeing right here, she's definitely grown into the role of being a queen. I think that comes across that I'm the queen, I'm in control, and like it seemed like before when you seen the little girl actors, like she wasn't secure with herself and being the queen. She didn't know how to be a queen. Now it's like, especially when you see how bad Viserys is, it's like she's running the show. It seems like it's like she doesn't even care what this guy says or anything. Really, it's just whatever she wants. She tried to get Kristen Cole to assassinate right in front of him. Like she was bold enough to really say, "Yo, you sworn to me. Do what I'm telling you to do." And he had to, tell her like, if no one was here, I would, but I can't do that for you.
He's all like, Ixnay on the public pay order.
Yeah, I'm telling people I'm like that. I can't do that. So I like the way that she's coming across. The actress playing Rhaenyra, I think she's doing a tremendous job. And yeah, she seems more calculating. She seems like, listen, she tricked her into doing with Lionel what Strong did, right? Expose yourself in public in front of everyone, right? So she learned from that and got it. And I like the way Daemon was like, no, let that go. Let that go. Don't get in the way of that. Don't stop that. Let everyone see exactly what this chick is willing to do, And I don't know if she really, I know they tried to make it come across that she was all upset that she cut her and it was unqueenly for her to act like that. I think she was cool with it. I think she didn't really mind cutting her. I think she just didn't want to do it in front of people, and the fact that people seen it, that's what she was more afraid of.
Yeah, it was the loss of decorum that Alicent was feeling bad that she overplayed her hand. I liked the conversation with Otto. She tried to put Otto in her place, be like, yeah, okay, Dad, say what you're going to say. And he's all like, where do I start? And she's like, oh, okay, Dad. Instantly he like put her back down to daughter level. And then she goes and she's like, oh, well, you were going to say that I did this and that. And he's like, yeah, that's true. But also totally redeemed yourself and you could win with that kind of fire. And that was very manipulative because I think Alicent was like, oh, I overplayed my hand. And Otto's like, this is a fight to the death. That's kind of the direction it's going to go. you got to get used to being ready to cut a MFer. So that was a interesting manipulation, and it shows you that Otto is still shaping her, in a way there.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Yeah, he's still, even though she's the queen and everything, there's still that father-daughter dynamic, right, between them. And she's still, even though she's the queen, she still listens to him and no, this is my dad and and everything else. She didn't try to overstep her bounds and order him around. It's kind of like a Tywin Joffrey-ish situation, like, oh, the king's got to go to bed. The king's tired, But it's got to get out. It's time for the king to go to bed. So.
Well, how about him saying Emma instead of Alicent? He's starting to slip, huh?
Yeah, and he, he put her down, but built her up at the same time. He checked her and then built her right back up and said, what you did was wrong, but I ain't never seen that fight in you before, girl, and I'm glad to see it because now I know we could win this game. This is a game we can actually win because this is the Game of Thrones. People are gonna die. That's just the bottom line. If you're playing it, there's gonna be bloodshed, and you got to be prepared for bloodshed. It's like what? That's what war is. When you look at war, right. War is death. That's what the war means. It means death. People are gonna die, and if you're not willing to have people die or see people die, then you have no business going.
So that's absolutely right, and like I said, you could see the transition from Alicent being afraid of what Larys has done to being like, okay, yeah, that's how we play. I'll give you a call in the future, buddy. So that was interesting. And then going back, just real quick, Brian Fontana asking about the scars. Somebody pointed out Daemon got hit with a fire arrow, so he actually would have been burnt and wounded. So if the scar looks extra gnarly, that would be why. And then Minty pointed out that there was a lot of talk of fire and the sea, right? Targaryens are fire, fire's a cage, this and that. We're meant to burn together. Daemira, #Daemira. And then the Velaryons are from the sea and all that. So Minty pointed out they faked Laenor's death with fire, and then he escaped into the sea. So it's like they said fire's a cage. He kind of escaped the cage of death and of his duty and stuff, and found freedom across the sea. So that's pretty good how they set that up. Nice one, Minty.
They did. Do you look at this as what really happened to him now?
What's that now?
Do you look at this as what really happened to Laenor? Is this what you go on? Or?
Well, I mean, George has said he didn't write
an unreliable narrator, you mean?
Well, yeah, so George has said he didn't write Fire and Blood with a truth in mind. He wrote all of this stuff as a choose-your-own-adventure. So there is no real truth per se, but since Fire and Blood is so threadbare, doesn't have any reliable details, this does kind of feel like the story of record in that sense. And I'm mostly just taking the show as it comes. I'm not thinking about the book that much. So yeah, this is what happened to him in my mind. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it was funny. Earlier today, I shared out a picture of Carl Corey, and because he was wearing I was like, his outfit is pretty, like princely. He's dressed pretty much above his standing, and so possibly I just said he was possibly too well dressed. And it's funny then that Daemon made a comment about that, because at first I thought, is he dressed like that because Daemon paid him, and he sort of went out and bought himself a nice suit, or is there another reason? So I was actually pleasantly surprised to see what the story actually turned out to be. That was actually a really nice, because I just in the books it's different, so I was pleasantly surprised by that.
I dig it.
This is what Kristen Cole should have got with this dude, because this dude was about that life. Like, he's willing to escape. Rhaenyra was like, no, I ain't going with you. See, if Kristen Cole would have got with him, he would have been like, yeah, let's take off, Playboy. Let's go.
Somewhere on the internet, Tony, there's somebody is shipping that. Carl and Kristen. Yeah. Shout out to Kristen and the ships with the oranges. I've always wanted to see where they go.
Yes, great. And the spices.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I was really happy not to see as much of what's this Krispy Kreme, as you guys call him. Some people call him. I was happy not to see as much of his face this week and his like cowlicks and all this. And they just for some reason they decided to cut his hair, which I don't know why they did that. But I was kind of happy not to see as much of him this week. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, I think it's beautiful how his face has transitioned from like, I can't hate that guy. He's so good looking and charming and personable in the interviews, and now like it's a hateable good looking face where you're like,
it's a punchable face.
Yeah, it's an amazing trick that they did. You really saw it last week. I was saying I really liked his acting in the yard. Some of those lines, he really snapped them. He's like, okay, fine, Prince Aegon, firstborn against firstborn, do it. It's like, don't let him up. And it's like totally different personality, at least in his bearing and stuff.
Yeah, I think
he's grown quite confident. Sorry, Tony.
I look at it like I watched a lot of professional wrestling when I was young and saw that, and it seemed like the pretty boy, the pretty face heel turn, like, right? That's why they have the pretty face guys, and then they make those guys turn heel, and the crowd hates those people more than they hate the big ugly guys. They always hate the guys who look good, and you get them to turn heel. They hate those guys the most, and I think that's exactly what happened to him. They gave him the heel turn, and now everyone hates him more than everybody else.
All right, so let's talk about it. Rhaenyra and Daemon slowly building up tension at the funeral. Long exposition talk on the beach. I like how that played out. Like I said earlier, I appreciated Rhaenyra sort of explaining some of what's happened with Laenor and what they've tried to do, and finding happiness with Harwin, as we kind of figured, and saying, I really like the whole, like, you left me and look at what my life has turned into. And Daemon's like, yeah, my life isn't that great either. And what do you guys think of it, just how that whole thing unfolded all the way to the end there? And Tony, go ahead, go first.
All right, yeah, I thought that they did a really good job with the expose. They don't have a lot of time, it seems like. They get all these feelings out and get everything and let you know. But I think this week they did a good job of pushing all that, let you know exactly where they stand. These are two people. She's always had a crush on her uncle. He's always been attracted to her. And like, listen, I'm not a little girl anymore. I'm growing up now. And if she really wanted him. Now when she came up to him and she was like, listen, pick me up and take me away like a wildling would do. Carry me off. Like, she really wanted him to do that. That wasn't just her saying it. She really wanted to go away with him.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Yeah, and now she has the opportunity to be with him. Now the circumstances are a little crazy here, right, at that time and stuff, but it just seems like it was destined for them to be together from the beginning, and now they finally have the chance to be together. How it works out for them is another situation, but we'll see exactly how that played out. But I liked everything that they showed about it.
It was an interesting mix of, like, we were always kind of meant for each other. We're of the same nature, but there was also the political aspect of like, hey, I can't take, these Greens are coming for me. They're trying to kill me and my sons. Like, if you love me, then throw down with me right now because I need your ass. So I thought that was real, that it had elements of both. Heidi, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree. And one of the things I really loved is, because we were talking about this last week, is what went on with Laenor. Like, did they even try? Because we were saying, they should have probably have at least tried to have a baby, and it turned out they did, and they did attempt to do that, as she mentioned. They laid together a few times. She was even hoping that the baby might have been his, but it wasn't. So I love that, and I loved how they both were very honest with each other. Like, he meant, she said, "Did you love Laena?" And he said, "We had, we had a deep, what enough. Is it? We were happy enough," which is, so now they're at this situation where, I'd have to kill your husband. We'd have to kill him, and then they came up with this idea, which was, I thought, pretty clever. So it sounds creepy in a way to kind of be like rooting for the two of them and think that they're kind of pretty hot together, because they're kind of hot together, right? I don't know, like as uncle and niece.
No, we're over it. It's okay. It is what it is.
It's pretty. They're a pretty hot couple, right? So same with John and Dany, like in that same sort of way, and it's a different culture and everything. So yeah, there was some stuff going on Twitter this week about rooting for Daemon because of the fact that he killed his wife. And I don't think that you have to necessarily like what a character does. You can still root for a character even if you don't like some of the things that they do. And I think that's sort of what my position is with the
absolutely. I mean, I feel like I say it every week, but it's like all kinds of disclaimers, like we're adults here, we can hold more than one thought in our head at the same time, and just because you say that so did something wrong doesn't mean you completely agree with the other side, so. But people always take some stuff out of, oh, you hate this character, like I was just being accused of standing them yesterday, but okay, so everybody makes mistakes in this thing. But the characters are still relatable, so you're left with that mixed bag. Like I said, it's nice that they didn't kill Laenor, but they did kill some innocent, like, house knight or something, so shout out to him, rest in peace.
Actually, I wanted to say something, David. You did a video, and I know you talked about it on social media about that. There's like kissing, which is very intimate. It's an intimate act, right? That I think that is it. Rhaenyra and Daemon are the only ones who actually have kissed in the show. Is that correct?
No, not quite. Well, Kristen obviously and Rhaenyra had the whole love scene. There's a lot of kisses on the cheek, but there's not a lot of passionate making. Like we never saw Rhaenyra and Harwin kiss. And I do think they have, some people have pointed out some of this was filmed during COVID, so maybe that was part of it. And there are other ways to show intimacy. Corlys and Rhaenys show a lot of intimacy without making out. So I was really trying to talk about intimacy more than just literally lip locking. But I was just wondering, my point was exactly where you were going, Heidi. If they don't save most of it for Daemon and Rhaenyra so that their relationship stands out as like by far the most passionate thing of any of these relationships. I think that's probably what they're doing.
Yeah. Did they write songs about them? Like, it would seem that they, that they would have had songs written about them, but I don't know that they did.
I'm not sure.
Tony, what'd you think?
Yeah, I don't know if they actually wrote songs about him at all or anything. But, when it comes down to these couples and stuff, it's always going to be some type of, if you don't like someone, you're going to find a reason not to like them. Right. So whether he's with his niece or, if you don't like the guy, you don't like the guy. Yes, he did a bad act. He did something. Just like I saw when we talked about Aegon. And Aegon, people talk about, oh, he shouldn't be king because he was jerking off out the window. Well, people do things when they're younger. It doesn't mean that they're not going to grow out of it. Right. So you can't just take one act that someone did and then for their whole lifestyle say they're unworthy because they did something when they were young. People grow out of a lot of different things, so.
I actually was thinking about that thing with Aegon that I was actually thinking, it might have been a kink he had, but at the same time I thought maybe he didn't want anyone finding it in his sheets. Like maybe he didn't want anyone discovering. He thought if I do it out the window,
that's a very practical thought, Heidi. Yeah, no cleanup.
I'm a mom of a teenager. I thought, maybe he was like, I'll get rid of the evidence. No one will know. And as you can see, his mother just barged in, like she just doesn't even like have any kind of, she's the type of mom who would read your diary. She's one of those types of moms.
Yes, yeah. I like how Alicent never said anything about what he was doing, but right at the end, she's kind of looks at him and she's like, "Get dressed." Like the between the lines was like, "Don't whack off in the fucking window, okay? Like, please." I will just say about Aegon real quick. It's not just the window whacker prince. It's also you noticed he was glancing at the serving girls when they passed by, and he was in the training yard, and he was leering openly, and they like looked down and hurried away. In the books, he has a reputation for being handsy and actually gets a bastard on a serving girl. So I think they are developing that sort of character trait with him. And also he was yawning in the dragon pit scene. Not that like who hasn't showed up tired for class, but they're consistently showing he doesn't take it seriously. He was bored at the funeral tonight. He got wasted and Otto was chewing him out like, get to bed. And then later they're like, why weren't you looking out for your brother? They're contrasting him with Aemond as this very serious kid.
Yeah, and they're doing a good job at that. And with the funeral scene, I know a lot of people didn't like that the Valyrians weren't speaking Valyrian, and they did, and they showed him speaking it. So I like that. So I know a lot of people were saying, how come they ain't speaking Valyrian, blah blah. There you have it. That you got to hear them speak Valyrian too. And Daemon just wasn't. I mean, laughing at the funeral. I mean, this guy's just dumb disrespectful. He really is. He's just really disrespectful. He's just a narcissist. I don't think he really has it in him to love anyone but himself. You know? I think that and that's just who he is, and is not ever going to change.
He was he's the kind of person that would probably rather be prince than king. To throw back to that earlier line. Like when Alicent was like, you know, this is a threat and Rhaenyra might want to, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, so I won't, he was just going to say, so I won't challenge her. Like, what's the big deal? And then she's all, your existence is a challenge, you know, but, he does, yeah, he does.
Yeah, and he calls his brother a twat, and he calls his sister. What did he say about his sister? You know, because there's, I guess at this point they're supposed to be betrothed.
Yeah, he called her stupid or something.
Stupid because she's into bugs and stuff. But now, did you guys hear any of her? You know, because she's doing some prophetic sort of musings there. Did she say anything of any importance?
Well, I need to go back over it, but it was something about dragons of flesh and dragons of thread, and it could be about the threads of the war. Somebody else suggested the ropes hanging down off Vhagar, because she was foreseeing Aemond and Vhagar last week when she said, you know, he'll have to lose an eye, so, or shut an eye. So feeble.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I don't know if that's actual her getting dreams or just that them just hinting, that the show writers hinting at it. And like when I look at it, I see it more as the show writers hinting at this. I would love to say it was a dream, but she wasn't sleeping. So, you know, when she was saying it. So I think I don't know. I know people want to say it, and I know it sounds great, and I wish I could say that too, but it seems more to me that was just more of a showrunners thing.
Well, it's important to remember that the prophecies aren't only from dreams. They've sort of overemphasized the dreams in the show, but in the books, that's not necessarily the case. And it kind of feels like there's a little bit of a shudder when Alicent touches her. So maybe it's like a thing when like she has contact with people or she's in a room with someone, she just gets a little glimpse of something that's going to happen. So like they were talking about, Alicent was like, you'll get a dragon. And I feel like it was right at that moment that Helaena was just like, he'll have to close an eye. Like it just occurred to her, kind of. But that was my interpretation. Yeah, it's unclear. But yeah, we'll see. I think they're going to keep building on it. Obviously, she's repeating something and doing. She feels super witchy. So yeah, I'll have to analyze all the words and see what it was. But I'm sure it was a reference to something. See,
if she continues to do it, then I'll you know, if she does it more than once, it's got to do it more than once. It's got to keep coming. If she does it a couple more times, then I'll go with it.
Yeah. Oh, J King, real quick, just mentioning. Not sure if you discussed this already, but the ropes on Vhagar are like the ropes draped across ships, which makes sense in relation to House Velaryon. Yeah, that was my first thought too. Was like, that's how some sailors would rig up a saddle. But now you see, like, oh, you literally need a ladder to climb up there. So
it was a rope ladder. Yeah. But I mean, that's how it is on the ships as well, right? They use those as like sort of ladders.
Yeah, cargo net.
That's a very good point.
So, does Helaena have a dream about Daenerys? No, there's nothing in the books about Helaena dreaming at all. This is a new thing. And we only have whatever she said on the screen about that. Although I'm sure somebody's made a video claiming that that's the case, because that's how it is. Swagadagger says, can we talk about the parallels of Cersei demanding the death of Lady with Alicent demanding an eye, and also Rhaenyra demanding that Aemond be put to the question? Yeah, I pointed that out before the season started. It's an obvious parallel to that scene for sure.
Yeah.
And in that scene, you know, listen, Robert bent the knee to Cersei. It was like, you know, and it got done, you know. So this one, you see that the king didn't allow it to go down. You know, the king stood up to her. You know, a lot of times you don't think he's going to stand to her, but this time he stood up to her. Robert Baratheon wasn't really trying to stand up to Cersei. He was like, go get her a dog, Ned. Just go get her a dog. Don't worry about it. Just do it. I don't got no time for this. And that's it. So, you know, I would say the king stood up better than Robert Baratheon stood up to Cersei.
Her stealing his cat's paw dagger, though, that was a pretty big deal. Like, I was actually surprised that that wasn't handled a little more heavy-handed, because the fact that she took a weapon from the king and then sliced the princess with it, that was like, I thought that was pretty. Sorry, David, I can't hear you.
I was just saying it was up to us. Thank you. It's so much nicer when you have with somebody else to tell you quicker. It's only Viserys that could punish Alicent, and Viserys is always just like, that's the end of it. We're done. We're moving on. I don't want to deal with this. So,
well, my husband was saying it was really mean that they didn't have pillows in the carriage on the way back to the ship, because he was just like, he looked so uncomfortable. He's like, he's like, I don't want to talk about it, but I think it was just because he was really uncomfortable. It's not that he didn't. I don't think he wanted to deal with anything. He has maybe because of his illness, he has a real trouble with travel. He probably gets car sick or whatever, boat sick.
Let's see. Mackenzie, I think the darkness of Daemon and Rhaenyra's scene is them still in hiding, but when their ending scene comes, it seems like it's in the morning, like they're finally in the light together. Yeah, no, I'm fine with having scenes at night. I just don't need it to be literally so dark. But yeah, that's good symbolism. Heidi, did you see any symbolism with them being under an upturned boat there? Maybe it was just a shout out to the Grey King and Naga's bones. Of course, they did talk about the Merling King consigning Laena's body to the Merling King. So I was excited about that. But
I didn't think of any symbolism there.
I don't know where my sorry is. I'm sorry. Somebody keeps asking. I don't know. She wasn't on this episode. Like I don't have inside information. Go ahead, Heidi.
No, I was going to say actually about the shooting, the darkness or whatever, because like it was Miguel Sapochnik. My husband pointed out there was one scene where actually the reflection on, it was actually when Aegon was drinking, there was a reflection off of the wall onto him, and there was like a fire there. There should have been light from the fire, but there was actually light from the wall. So even though because they did this day for night thing, I didn't, so I like some of the symbols and everything, but at the same time I was like, I just want to see it. I just want to see what's happening. I want to see the love scene a little bit better, Yeah. I was like, to be honest with you, I was like, what is that thing? What are they under there? And then now it makes sense. It's an
I was just like, stuff's happening. It's they're making out and clothes are coming off, and that's cool. Like, yeah, I was more, I feel like the chemistry is really established in the dialogue scenes, and that it was really good. So yeah, I'm sure they did a good make out too, but yeah, it's hard to see. I'm always looking out for the Night King.
Oh, and she had stockings. That was the other thing. I was like, "Whoa, dude, she's wearing stockings!" I was so excited to see that.
Well, I know how you feel about undergarments and the lack of undergarments.
Yes, yeah, I love them, and then they can come off, and it looks amazing. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day. There's a photo shoot that they did with the actress who plays Alicent, Olivia Cook, and did you guys all see? I'm sure you saw it.
Yeah, everybody saw it.
Everyone saw it, and. I was like, I wish she had worn that like Mary Widow underneath her dress, because she doesn't, in my humble opinion, she doesn't have proper support under that thing. So I think that would have actually looked.
That would be hilarious. Alicent seen by herself. She comes into her room. She undoes her hair and takes off her green dress, and it's like super hot stockings and lace thong. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool with Rhaenyra, that she had those red stockings, but then Daemon took off his jacket and he wasn't wearing his pirate shirt. So I was like, where's his, like, he usually has that really nice linen shirt. So he just had nothing under there. He just was like ready to go. It was sort of funny.
So some really good dialogue in this episode, and I'm sorry, both my guests, if I'm jumping around. I see super chats going by and comments. It's hard to stay on top of everything. This is why I went to doing this by myself. But there's a lot of good dialogue. I feel like I almost want to do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 style review. You guys know that show with the three silhouettes sitting in the front, the robot, and yeah, so they're just mad-libbing and reading all the lines in between the dialogue. The dialogue, there was so much between the lines going on. So now they see you as you are. That was a line that we saw from the trailer. Now that one makes a little more sense. That was interesting how that one played out, because Alicent really had overexposed her hand there. And then the one about from Corlys, history doesn't remember names, or doesn't remember blood, it remembers names. Somebody suggested that was going to be about the parentage of Jace and Luke, and that is indeed what it turned out to be about. So what do you guys think of that, or any other dialogue that stood out to you?
I know that a lot of people, and I said this earlier today, that a lot of people were not happy about the casting when they first casted all the Valyrians, but I think that this makes it better that they're black, because you can clearly see that these are not her kids, right? If you had white actors in there playing it, unless they were redheaded or something like that, you would still have the ability to say, maybe they could be his kids. But this, I think, makes it clear 100% that these are not their kids at all. And I think that plays out much better with these actors. Not just talking about overall the great job that they're doing, but just physically, and when you see them, that it just makes it much more clear that obviously this is, anyone can see it. I mean, that's what I say it right to the king. Like, look, everybody can see it. He has to see it too. You just don't want to see it at this point. It's your child and everything else. Just
real quick, Swagger Dagger, don't go do anything stupid there, buddy. I think he's about to go murder his neighbor. I need you as a mod. Don't keep your head on straight there, son.
Yeah, like when Viserys asked Aegon, because he's like, "Oh, Aegon, it's your fault," and he's like, "Well, I thought that was a really great line. Like everyone knows it. Like I'm not saying it correctly, but
that's straight from the books too. That's just what he said.
Everyone knows it. Like,
yeah,
what is wrong with you? Like, how do you not know? He doesn't want to know, I guess."
Yeah, and that's the whole point of the plot line. It is supposed to be pretty obvious in the books. There's a thread of doubt because Grandma Rhaenys had black hair, so maybe that's why all 3 grandkids have brown hair, but it's pretty unlikely. But this does make it even more clear, and that's the point. It's supposed to be an emperor wears no clothes thing. When Viserys is all like, "This vile calumny," and everyone's like, okay, bro, sure. But yeah, so Tony, let me go to you, Tony. What did you think of the dialogue in this episode? I thought there was a lot of good lines.
Yeah, I think that they outdid themselves, the writers, on giving all the lines for everyone. Again, it's a very hard thing that they're actually trying to do here, right? They're trying to set you up and set all these people's backstory up and do it very quickly. And these episodes are a little longer than normal Game of Thrones episodes, which I do appreciate that they have a little bit longer. But I think they did a great job in just handling all the lines and getting people familiar with these characters, and also their attitudes they have towards each other in this war. The whole thing with when they had that, and the king is like, "Don't lie to me." This is the exact same thing that we seen with Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark when they had the fight with Joffrey. It was the same thing, and Robert said to him, "Listen, tell it to me true. It's a high crowd. You can't lie to the king," and everything else. It's the exact same scene they did, and they just did it over right here. And I think that they did a great job with it.
So, do you think somebody's saying in the chat that Robert was basically as willfully blind as Viserys is? Do you think Robert kind of knew what was going on? He probably did, didn't he?
About those not being his kids?
Yeah.
I don't know, because
he's kind of dumb. He is kind of dumb.
If he knew the history of his own house, that every Baratheon ever born all had black hair, then he should know. But if he didn't know that, Ned didn't know that until Ned seen the book. Ned seen the book, he looked in the book and he said, hair black, head black. And then he caught it and was like, all right, this is what's going on. Until then, Ned had no idea. When Ned went up there and seen Joffrey up there, he didn't say that's not Robert's kid. He thought it was Robert's kid. So there's some good plausible deniability here. This is different. That's why I say when you deal with people in different races, there ain't no blackness in them boys. My kids are half white and they don't look as dark as me, not even close. But you can tell that they got black in them. It's not hard to tell. You can tell by their hair. You can tell by their features. It's not hard to tell.
How many kids you got? How many kids you got, Tony? I didn't know you had kids.
Huh?
How many kids you got? I didn't know you had kids.
I have 2 daughters.
Oh, that's sweet. I bet you're a good dad, man.
I am a
Yeah,
great dad.
yeah, like it's sort of like my brother, his wife is Sri Lankan, so both the kids are kind of a mixture of the two of them. Like, they're dark, but they have like dark hair. Like whereas my brother-in-law was blonde as a kid, but they're sort of like the skin tone is sort of in between the two of them. Whereas my kids are like both my husband and I are really white, so they look, So when we get together, you would be like they're not cousins. They don't really look like cousins. So it's sort of like I found that with Rhaenyra's children and Laena's children, they don't really look like cousins, right? Like, go talk to your cousins. It's like, well, they're not really my cousins.
Yeah, I think they're overall handling it pretty well as far as how they're having the characters talk about it. We've seen a lot of characters, like we've seen the way Alicent and Kristen talk about it. We've seen Alicent bring it up to Viserys, and Viserys is like, I had a silver horse and a black horse. And then we got like Rhaenys and Corlys, where Rhaenys is like, you can drop the pretense, we're alone here. And then Daemon with the whole any word about whether or not the children bear, completely coincidental but striking resemblance to the captain of the City Watch. So they're definitely dealing with it, and they're showing how the different characters approach it differently.
I was going to say someone's commenting about Tyrion and Jaime. I just think that in that case, the actors just didn't want to dye their hair anymore. They should have been blonde like throughout the whole seasons. They
started blonde,
so and then they started blonde, and it was the same with Sophie Turner. She was actually dyeing her hair, and then I guess she was having some problems, and then they went to a wig. But I honestly think that's what it was. They just were like, no, we don't want to dye our hair anymore, so they just went with that. But in this case, obviously, they're doing wigs, and although I guess Rhaenyra's children, that's their natural colored hair, I guess.
Now, before I lose this thought, interesting, when Daemon and Rhaenyra were talking about their plot, and by the time they got to the end and it was obvious that we were talking about faking Laenor's death, Rhaenyra said, oh, well, people will think that we did it, and they'll wonder what else we're capable of. And she kind of smiles like, oh, it's good for people to fear us. But of course, that's also playing right into Alicent's storyline about, oh, they're going to kill my children by doing this too. So you can see how it's like, it's kind of good to be feared, but it's also going to potentially backfire.
Yeah, I mean, when you were stepped away a little bit, me and Hattie had a little conversation. We were talking about Loras, and we were saying, even though he did something for Alicent, how can Alicent truly trust him, a man who's willing to go that far and kill his own family for you? So it would be the same situation here with her. If they think that, this woman was willing to off her husband just so she could be with her uncle, how could we really get down with this? And he's already got rumors swirling around that he killed his wife. So how can we really take these people? Is this the next Maegor the Cruel couple that's just going to devastate the realm and ruin the realm? And this is just a bad look all the way around.
Yeah, and I did wonder what the time frame was after Laenor's death and the wedding, because it would have been, she would have had to have gone into a period of mourning before she would have been allowed to marry. At least socially, it wouldn't have been socially acceptable to do that.
I assumed it was soon after, but not the next day. I just assumed that because that would make the most sense. But
yeah, because that would have just gotten tongues wagging even more. You know what I mean? Like, his wife just died. They just buried her. Her husband just died. They could even be, responsible for murdering him. And now they've gotten married very, very quickly. So that would have just gotten everyone's tongues wagging. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out there.
I think it makes sense because when I was reading Fire and Blood, I was kind of like, oh, man, Rhaenyra's already undermined her own claim by having kids that aren't Laenor's. And then she marries Daemon, public enemy number one. Of course people are going to challenge her claim. But I like the way that they spun it, where she's like feeling overwhelmed and she's like, no one will challenge me if I have you at my side because you project strength. And right now I'm not projecting enough strength. So it kind of makes sense how they put it together, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, we had a case of something that happened in real life like that. Who was that? Was that Lori Daybell. I know the last name was like Daybell or something like that, but almost the same thing really happened with her. Like, she got with this guy. This guy was like some doomsday type people. I'm sure people in the chat remember the case of her, and they got rid of her kids. Like, they killed the kids, buried the kids, and he had a wife, and his wife got killed, and no one knew how. And then all of a sudden, her husband got killed, and no one knew how. And it turned out that the brother was like this hitman for him, going around killing both their spouses, and took out the kids because the kids weren't around. That's how it all. But it would be a situation like that, and how that woman, I remember how they, and rightfully so, was scrutinized, and she tried to run off to Hawaii, and the press filed the right to Hawaii and everything else, until looking for a daughter and everything else, until it all came out, and eventually she was arrested and everything else. So I think it would be a situation like that going on, in that, not to that extent, obviously, Lori Daybell, who did that, but it would be a situation like that, because these are two people who are under suspicion of killing both of their spouses.
So yeah.
Well, just to comment, someone's saying I'm not saying, I know they had a private wedding, but it would have gotten out. I mean, the king will find out. Like, it's not like they can keep it private for long.
Well, what I thought, no, it will get out. Yeah, for sure. In the books, they made more of that. Like, oh, they went off and married on their own, so they wouldn't have to ask permission. I think that, and someone's pointing out that both the blacks and the greens gained a dragon, right? Like, the greens got Vhagar, and Daemon marrying Rhaenyra means he's joined her side, and so he brings Caraxes. Don't know if that's going anywhere, but in any case, and let's see, what was I had some other thought, but it slipped away. Too many thoughts. I was going to be responding to something you said too. Shit. What were we just talking about? Jog my memory. It'll come back.
Were we talking about their marriage?
Yeah, their marriage and them running off and getting married, and books, and how people, they would have a mourning period. People would start looking at them. Funny if it was this happened right away.
Yeah, I think like I said, I like how they've played out the events. It's believable and understandable how everything's happened. What I was going to say was just that Tony, to respond to your comparison to that documentary, it always did seem a little like that, because Laena and Laenor and Harwin all die in the same year, and then Rhaenyra and Daemon marry each other, and it's like, hold on, what just happened there? That's either really coincidental or there's some foul play. But it's also monstrous to think that Daemon and Rhaenyra murdered all those people, because Daemon is also blamed for the fire at Harrenhal by the Maesters. So I like how they've played it and made it make sense. So it's like, yeah, Daemon did murder an innocent person. He's not innocent. But they didn't just murder Laenor and Laena and Harwin and then marry. That didn't make sense to me either.
I love how they Laena, Laena, she was saying how she thought if they had the Maesters in King's Landing, they could have saved her daughter versus the Maesters in Penthouse. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was a really human thing to do.
I'll take the Penthouse doctors, I think, over the
I think so
Maesters.
too, actually.
After looking at that surgery, it's pretty rough.
Yeah. It was funny because I was I'm doing a live stream on the weekend coming up about armor, and the one guy I was talking to, he's like a bit of a medievalist, and we were talking about that, like what things they could have done to save women back then, because they would have had these techniques that they would have been able to do, but yeah. So I'm not really sure. I don't have any knowledge of that time period regarding childbirth and so on. So it was sort of interesting.
So Tony just dropped off, obviously. I'm assuming he'll call back.
Yeah, we lost him.
Yeah, technical difficulties. People are used to it. I'm sure he'll pop back in a second. Real quick.
Oh yeah, sorry, Driftmark Maesters. not King's Landing Maesters.
So do you think the blacks will have to tell Rhaenys about Laenor? I was saying that they probably would. They wanted her to react honestly to help sell it, but I don't see why they wouldn't tell her. She can obviously keep a secret, so,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And otherwise, because again, with the suspicions, if she suspects at all that Rhaenyra and Daemon had something to do with her son's death, that would definitely cause a rift or like a wedge.
So yeah, so that's otherwise it would be hard to explain why Corlys and Rhaenys back the Blacks if they were to think that obviously they murdered their son. So let's see.
Yeah, I noticed that Laenor shaved his head before they. I guess that the locks must be like a sign, a symbol of the Valarians because he shaved his head before they left.
Well, it's just to hide his identity. Like a lot of people
Mhm.
think Varys is a Blackfire, and that he's bald because he shaves his. He's got silver hair. So let's see. Dimitri says, I suffered heavy parasocial interaction. You suffered parasocial interaction with Emma Darcy? What? Associating the character with the actor too much? Okay. Aemond stole the show for me. He's my favorite character. That was just confusing. Yeah, Emma Darcy's great. I don't know what else to say about that comment. Aemond was awesome too. Talk about the symbolism of Daemon and Rhaenyra making love under the moon and Aemond claiming a dragon under the moon. It's probably just real cinematic looking, but maybe it's more than that. I'm not going to get excited about any astronomy symbolism unless they really come strong with it at this point. So I'll save
Well,
that for
the moon is a female symbol. I don't know. Maybe it's something to do with that.
Yeah, that's probably they're using it in a more conventional way, I would think. Yeah, but again, it was Aemond and Vhagar flying in front of the moon that time. That was probably just a shout out to when Visenya rode Vhagar in front of the moon. I think that's all it is.
And it looks cool, as you mentioned. Can I read this question, David?
Yes, please.
Emily asked, question for Costume Co. Do you know how they were able to dye fabrics black in Westeros and the real world equivalent didn't happen until the early modern period? Well, I mean, they would have, I was going to say I'm not a historian, but they would have been able to combine the colors in such a way that it would be like almost a black. It wouldn't be like an aniline black or it would be a vegetable black. So, you could take purples and browns and stuff like that and combine them together. So like are you talking about when they go to the wall and all that type of thing? But they've had black for a long time, actually. That's been around for the royals at any rate have had that color. And certainly that's what someone was mentioning earlier when I was mentioning Phoenician purple or Tyrian purple, which comes from a shell, a snail, a type of snail. So that's one of the reasons why purples were sort of only given to royals because it was so rare and expensive. Same with like some of the richer kind of colors. So, but there's a scene actually in Game of Thrones when they go to the north and they have to put all of their clothes into a big pot to dye their clothes black. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah, I don't. I'm just glad you're here to answer that question. I would have been like, I don't know. So, but as far as the Tyrian purple, George is using that in a couple ways. In Bravos, they've got the purple dye that comes from snails. So that's very similar. Also, the Phoenicians' habit of building fortified cities just off the shore of foreign lands they wanted to trade with, which is both Sidon and Tyre, I believe, are like that. That's what the Valerians do. Tyrosh and Lys are both like that. Dragonstone is like that. Dragonstone might as well be a Phoenician fortress colony city. It's used for trading, fortified military outpost just offshore of a foreign land. So there's a lot of Phoenician stuff in Ice and Fire. So it's cool that he named a character Tyrion just as a way of splitting, he's using the dye part and the name somewhere else. So
yeah, I think that's awesome.
I think that Tyrion talks about the dye at some point too. So.
Oh, does he? Okay, see, I can't remember.
Double check,
I can't remember that.
So.
Yeah. But it came up during during a Game of Thrones video. I remember I was talking about it. And it was funny because like a lot of the dye stuff that like all the different colors and things like the Vikings would have used them. So I kind of got really jazzed about dyes when I was studying Vikings and their history. So a lot of this stuff from the Middle Ages was adopted from the Vikings in many ways by the medievalists. and the Celts and the Scots and the the like. They took
well, the
a lot
Vikings
of
got
inspiration
around.
from the Vikings.
They got
They
around
did.
a
They
lot
yeah,
more
exactly. That's why.
Yeah, like their swords were the Damascus steel from the Middle East. So like, yeah, that's
Exactly. And like one of the things that I was really excited about, like a lot of even like Celtic symbolism, Celtic symbols, a lot of like even Fair Isle patterns from Ireland, all came from the Vikings. So they adopted a lot of the sort of the techniques that the Vikings had. And the whole idea of Vikings like going on a Viking and raiding and pillaging, but really oftentimes they would stay and spend time with each other. So I always love that. By the way, there's a lot of Celtic symbolism in House of the Dragon, but also in Game of Thrones and Japanese. Actually, there's like tons of symbolism in both shows.
Oh, sorry for the lack of mute. I tried to mute that cough. It didn't come through.
But David, you know that Vikings didn't wear horns, though, right?
I do know that. Well aware. I made a video about Norse influences, Odin influences on A Song of Ice and Fire. Many people commented. I even made a joke about it. I wore this thing and I was like, I know. And then I was wearing a Minnesota Vikings jersey and I was like, but I'm a fan of the Minnesota Vikings, so I get to wear this. And I still got comments about it.
I'm still not even sure where it came from. Like they were saying it might have come from Wagner and the Valkyrie and the Ring Cycle, and but I looked at pictures from when they did it and they had wings. So I don't know, but there have been some horned helmets throughout history.
They're super common. They're everywhere. Everybody did it. Like
exactly.
India, the Babylonians, it's friggin' everywhere. It's so widespread that you can't even draw a link between all of it because it's such apparently an obvious thing to do. So it does look magnificent, I must say.
It does. So is Tony not coming back? Did he just completely ditch us? What's going on there?
I don't know.
Tony, where are you?
Maybe he lost power or something. Let me see if he sent me a message, but his laptop died. He didn't have it plugged in. Well, we'll see if he makes it back or not. No worries. Yeah, that might take a minute. By the way, I
just wanted to say this is my first time being on your show, and you have a wonderful chat, a wonderful group of followers. By the way, just want to say
they've learned to be very patient for my tardiness in getting to their questions, but I always do answer them. Who was the fifth dragon flying around? All of three Alicent's sons fly dragons now. There were 3 dragons flying away with the ships. I'll have to study that, but Helaena should have Dreamfire by now. So it should be Sunfire, Dreamfire, and Vhagar, I guess, right? Damascus steel originally came from Sri Lanka and southern India. Says Hyperborea. Yeah, I don't.
A lot of sort of arms and armor was traded with the Vikings. I saw some armors that had definite sort of like Western or Eastern influences that the Vikings sometimes would even adopt. And so they would kind of travel around with it. I think a lot of these things had like a real migratory sort of thing that would happen. I think you and I we were chatting about obsidian. So like, for instance, at the museum in Toronto where I live, they have actually examples of obsidian. And during Game of Thrones, I was like, oh, obsidian's like dragon glass. They used to use it for arrowheads. And actually, it was funny because the museum, I added them and they were like, yes, yeah, Game of Thrones. Like, they even sort of acknowledged that. So a lot of the fantasy elements in Game of Thrones have real world sort of objects that sort of are represented. So like Valyrian steel is, like Damascus steel. It has like it can have that bit of that watermark. We're going to talk about that actually. David, I hope you don't mind if I do a little plug. That next, what's that? You're muted. Oh, you're wearing an obsidian pendant, but you're muted, my friend. You're muted. I can't hear you.
Oh, I was muted again. I was just saying. So
is that an obsidian pendant you're wearing?
It is. Yes, it's a dragon glass knife. I'm gonna cut my lips here on live television, and then I'm gonna marry a lucky person in the chat. I'm just gonna pick a random person out of the chat, and but go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, can I do a plug for my show next week?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say that okay, I love discussions. I'm not an armor person, even though it's not really under the umbrella of costumes as much, but oftentimes people wear their arms and armor. So I sometimes like to include it. So I'm having a live stream next Saturday with this really great guy named Red Wolf. And he is actually a bushcraft guy, but also an arms and armor expert. So we had a really cool meeting last week talking about cat's paw dagger. And he has one that's very, very similar. So we're going to talk about some of the weapons. We're going to talk about Dreamfire. We're going to talk about Daemon's sword. I've lost it off the top of my head. We're going to talk about cat's paw dagger. And we're going to talk about some of the armors that the groups, the different groups are wearing, like the City Watch and the King's Guard and so on. So I'm really excited about that because even though that's not my area of expertise, I love talking about armor and weapons. So if anyone wants to come by, we're going to be on next week at like 9 p.m. EST on Saturday.
And the main thing is just go subscribe to her channel right now and set the notification bell to all. And then anytime Heidi goes live or puts out a new video, you'll know about it.
Yeah. And sorry, how I got onto that was we were talking about Damascus steel. So yes, for sure that the Valyrian steel, I'm pretty certain George took inspiration from Damascus steel, which has a beautiful kind of like watermark in it.
Well, the key is the folding. Damascus steel, that's the whole thing.
Yes.
Is it's folded over hundreds or thousands of times.
Very
and that's
strong.
what they say about Valyrian steel. So
very, very strong. And then same with the dragon glass and the obsidian. So I thought that's a really, really fun thing.
Okay, so as far as who I'm
yes,
going to
thanks,
marry
Christian.
in the chat, Carl Karsnark is definitely catching my eye there. Swagger Dagger, you know, it's got the swagger. Talk Studios, always clever with the comments. I like good humor. It's important to me. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to go with that Minty Maelstrom person. She sounds
I think
hot.
she's a good one for you.
Yeah, she sounds cute. I don't know. So
now, is that dragon glass sharp though? You might want to file it a little bit.
So
'cause if
it's
dull, that would
not
be really
sharp,
bad.
but it is. Like if you press in on
okay.
it, you could cut with it, but it's
Okay.
not overly sharp there. But
Yeah, I've had my lips split naturally just from like, the winter, and it's painful. Like it actually hurts. Like to
should
have
move
your
somewhere
lips split.
warmer. Yeah, that happened to me once, but I moved. So
Yeah. Well, that's expensive though.
yeah,
I could just go
Minty
get
is my
lip balm or
fiance.
something.
If you didn't know, that's my fiance. I'm not being creepy. We're actually.
She's there with you. I knew that. I was playing dumb.
She's all, yeah, you are, shouting from the kitchen. All right, so let me catch up on some questions here. Let's see, can I get a quick Dragon Rider list at the end of episode 7? Well, we just said Helena's got Dreamfire, Aegon Sunfire, and Aemond has Vhagar. And then on the black side, we've got Caraxes and Syrax, obviously. Moondancer, Bela has Moondancer, Rhaenys has Melees, and Grey Ghost is potentially unclaimed. We don't know if Laenor could come back or what's going on with Grey Ghost. Not Grey Ghost, Sea Smoke. Sea Smoke.
Yeah, that's actually a really important point. Like, did he leave Sea Smoke, or did he? It looks like he did.
That's a new question they've introduced because this is a change from the books. So
yeah, for sure.
So let's see here. Next super chat. Thank you, Cam, by the way. Oh yeah, I read Cam's already. That was Sanctuary, the one I just read a second ago. No, roast beef. Well, thank you all. They've all sent super chats.
And if you're wondering why David's wearing a Viking helmet, it's because we were I for some reason.
Oh,
had
they
to
don't
just
wonder.
keep-
They know. They know.
Oh, they know. Okay. I had to talk about Vikings.
Yeah, no,
And
just in
unfortunately, I don't
general.
have a Viking.
Yeah. There's
I
a
don't
reason
have a
why I've
Viking
got
helmet.
like a whole bunch of different hats up here. But
I love you have one with horns. It's kind of like a Loki one.
yeah, that's an official Baratheon crown. That
Is it
one.
really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, because I thought it looked like Loki.
You're talking about this one.
No, you have ones with horns. No, though that is a Baratheon one for sure. But no, I thought you had one with just two horns coming out like that.
Oh, yeah, that is. I'm sorry.
I love that Baratheon crown. Yes, that one. Yes, I love your Baratheon crown though. Yes, that one. Is that not Loki?
It's not intentionally, but it's
devil?
Similar too. Yeah, this is the classic dragon LML headgear. And then I've also got the antlers too. So I've got a lot of horned hats. It's kind of my thing. Did somebody say horny?
Baratheon one. It's like did you find it like was it handcrafted or where'd you find that? Because it's not the official.
So this I got at Con of Thrones a few years ago.
Oh,
it's got a Celtic knot on it, so
beautiful.
it's like
It's
not
leather?
a Game of Thrones thing. It's just a.
Is that one leather?
Kinda. Yeah, it's something. I don't know.
No, but the Baratheon one though, that one. Where did you get that one?
Halloween store.
It's beautiful.
Heidi, they opened a Halloween store a block away from my house this year.
Is it Spirit Halloween?
The one and only Spirit Halloween. That's right. That's where I get most of my stuff, to be honest.
There's a Spirit Halloween movie that looks so bad. Like I was like, seriously, they made a movie like about Spirit Halloween.
No, I need a Conqueror's crown. I need all the crowns. I need an Aegon's crown. I need to get a Bloodstone Emperor crown somewhere. But continuing with the questions people have paid me to answer. Let's see here. Centrium, do you think... I read that one. Yeah, I mentioned the Merlin King Iron Island vibes. That was awesome. Let's see.
Wally wants to know if we'll see a Valyrian steel crown at some point this season.
Well, that is the crown of Aegon the Conqueror, and they do break that out during the war for somebody to wear. Yeah, that's true.
By the way, David, I know you and I were talking about rubies on Viserys's armor at one point, and I found a really great picture today. I found this site that has a bunch of the costume pictures on it. So it is Rhaenyra's Valyrian steel pendant, and there is a ruby kind of set in there, and then like almost some little floating rubies kind of on there. So because we were talking about whether those bloodstones on his armor or they rubies. I think they're rubies like on his armor.
I'm sure they're meant to be rubies. Yeah, for sure. Somebody says they can 3D print me a Conqueror's crown, but you want to see how they do it on the show. I think that one is pretty set as far as how it looks. The square cut rubies kind of defines it. But yeah, I'm curious to see how they'll do that too.
Yeah, we were talking when I had had a sort of preview chat with the guy that's doing the armor show with me next week. There's a really great illustration in World of Ice and Fire of Aegon's crown with the nice square cut rubies.
Yeah, and they've used some of the fan art for the Valyrian steel swords too, Blackfire and Dark Sister. They look similar to some of the fan art pieces. I forget which ones, but yeah, I like how they're doing that. Let's see.
I hope they paid them.
There is that new Rise of the Dragon book coming out where they've partnered with a lot of artists. So yeah, it's not impossible. I guess I shouldn't scoff. Roast Beef asks, are there any unclaimed dragons on screen at this point? Likely riders and or green versus black dragon riders breakdown. Well, I just did the breakdown. Unclaimed dragons. Well, it's a question about sea smoke, like we mentioned. There's a lot of unclaimed dragons, actually, but we'll probably just leave that till they get to that. They're going to get to that in season 2. They're going to try to find people to claim them, so that's coming. Did Alicent look pregnant to you? Was she holding her belly on the ship there?
Yeah, well, I was trying to figure out how long has it been since she's had a baby. Because she would have, I made a video.
Aemond is like 8.
What's that?
Aemond is 8 or 9, so it's been a while.
Oh, Alicent. No, I think it's just the way the dress is cut, to be honest with you. Sorry, I thought you were Rhaenyra. Sorry. That goes back to that she's not wearing stays. Like she's not wearing, any kind of undergarment. And there is, I actually looked at it today because there was what's called it's an inverted box plate. So at the bottom, it's an inverted box plate and it then flares out, and it's not really the most flattering cut. So that goes back to some of the costumes aren't fitting exactly how I would like to see them fit. I'm trying to be kind.
1, put a plate in that box. 2, sorry.
There's actually box plates and then there's inverted box plates. So, you can go either way. You don't have to, you can invert them or you can just have the box plate. You know what
3, invert the plate in that box. Okay. I'm done. Sorry.
No, it's crazy. No, David, it was funny because I think Robert from In Deep Geek was saying that he loves to just, go crazy with the analysis and just will go down this rabbit hole and we'll be there for days kind of thing. And I know you're like that as well. So there is a ridiculousness with me sometimes when I'm just staring at pictures for hours on end, like zooming in and looking at things. Like I'll be like, oh, look at that dart. I don't know what's, so there is some ridiculousness there that happens when you're a little bit of a nerd.
Well, that's, you don't have a YouTube channel by accident, so.
So that was a good question, but no, I don't think she's pregnant, and I don't think that
well, the question is Daeron. The question is really Daeron. In the book, there's a 4th kid, and that kid fosters at Old Town, so it's potentially that kid is already born and it's in Old Town, and they just haven't mentioned him. But we'll see. Unknown.
Yeah, that's interesting, and whether they're going to keep it in. At this point in the show, though, it does. Yeah, it seems sort of. Weird. I got confused with Rhaenyra because Rhaenyra also, there's still I think a little bit of leftover, for her. Because after you have a baby, you don't kind of snap back completely. It takes you a while, especially after your 3rd one. You're still sort of actually, and I think they did a really great job in the show with that too. They showed that. And I think I mentioned this to you that I was actually pleasantly surprised when they did the afterbirth, because I don't think I've ever seen that done in a show. To my recollection. So that was very accurate.
Yeah, I'm not a parent, so I don't know about that. When they said the afterbirth, Minty's like, of course. And I'm like, the what? Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Well, it was funny too, because I thought they were going to do it when she's climbing the stairs, because that would have been really horrifying. But I actually thought that would have been interesting if they had done it when she was climbing the stairs. But then the umbilical cord would have to be cut. So that's the thing.
There's a whole world out there that men don't
Some
know about.
Some women freeze their placentas
parents,
and then they eat them. Have you heard that? They take the placenta at the afterbirth and they freeze it and then they eat it.
I have heard of that. Yeah.
I am not one of those people, though.
All right. Well then, does anybody have a question?
Did I take that down a really dark?
No, it's fine. It's fine. This is Game of Thrones. I mean, it is what it is.
I just took that down like a really crazy place. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, how dare you speak of human biology? It's disgusting. Humans are disgusting, but this is what we do here. So, I'm a bit of a germaphobe. So I think everything that humans do is disgusting, kind of. But it is. That's how we are. In any case.
Oh, you must have been just disgusted. Oh, you must have been really upset with those chamber pots was it the last season of Game of Thrones? All the chamber pots.
That was distressing. Heidi,
awful.
let me tell you, when Kristen and Rhaenyra were having their love scene, I was just like, oh, thank God she has some clean sheets to have an experience. Daemon brought her that friggin' brothel. I was like, it's so dirty in there. Don't touch anything. But
so true.
It's probably not true, though. I'm probably slandering brothels. They probably change the sheets 5 times a day. I don't know. I'm sorry. I not in the orgy room. Yeah, no, it's all good. It's just a continuum. Anyways, is there a site you frequently visit to provide all these fantastic illustrations? Like on my videos? No, I just search them. I spend hours doing it. So.
You can also I go to ArtStation, and there's the other one as well. And I find a lot of the Game of Thrones.
Oh, Deviant Art and ArtStation.
Deviant Art, exactly. Sure. Actually, it was great because I ended up, I just ended up, I wanted to use a bunch of images for some videos. So I went there and then I just privately messaged them. And I have to tell you, these people are like just the best people ever. And they were like, sure. I think everyone said yes, except for if it was used for one of the card games or something, then I'd have to get permission. But everyone said, of course. You're welcome to use
okay,
my
I think
work.
I have the answer to the sea smoke Laenor thing. So they just threw rocks at her. That is just like Arya and Nymeria, where they just threw rocks at Nymeria. We're like, go on, girl. That's what they did. They threw rocks at Sea Smoke, and Sea Smoke was confused. He's like, oh, why can't I come to Essos and be gay and happy? And they're like, no, Sea Smoke, sorry, you're a dragon. You can't come. It's sad. It's very sad. It's very sad.
It is sad. Someone's asking me what I think of Daemon's crimes coat. I don't know. It's kind of, we were joking about it. It's a little
crimes
bit,
coat. That's good.
Crimes coat. It was funny because again, when I posted that picture of Carl,
it's like, hold on, it's like his Batman outfit, but he's
exactly. It's like his Batman
fighting crime. He's doing crime, right?
Yeah, he's doing crime. So when I posted the picture of Carl in that in his like sort of finery, and I said, "Oh, I wonder why he's wearing this really nice outfit. How did he get that outfit?" And then someone said, "Oh, I wonder if a man with blonde hair in a dark hooded cloak will be approaching him." And then sure enough, it happened. I was like, "Oh my god!" Well, he must have seen the episode, but
well, of
yes,
course,
absolutely.
that's part of the character building for Carl in the books. Is they say, well, potentially, if someone paid him to carry out the murder, it would make sense because he has these rich tastes and can't really afford it. But of course, if you're going to date the prince, then you got to dress like a prince. So that makes sense. So I like the way they used that in that conversation.
Yeah, me too. But someone was saying, I think it was Tatiana was saying that it was like, what's the name of that video game? It's a little bit, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that. Just, yeah, he's decided, okay, I need something that kind of, like, I don't know, that sort of disguises me, but that's, that can sort of, is it the same cloak also he wears in Flea Bottom when he takes Rhaenyra to the brothel? Yeah, so it's his crime cloak.
It's his, it's a shady cloak. It's his doing crimes coat.
It's pretty funny. Yeah. Mindy's laughing.
And of course, it had the Grim Reaper feel when he murdered his wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just for general crime, chicanery, tomfoolery, shenanigans.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was pretty funny that they came up with that. Doing crimes.
Yeah, someone mentions crime around Daemon. He's like, well, it could be done. Be messy, but... Yep.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed, that's it. Thank you, guys. I'm a middle-aged
Well, that's the whole
lady,
thing
so
about the rogue prince is like, it's a bad combination. It's the entitlement and the lack of morality or whatever it is that he's got going on, so...
Yeah, and George says he's a rogue if he ever met one.
Yeah, rogue is like, and that's the whole thing about George is he like, yeah, these rogues are charming and stuff, but that shit leads to trouble too at the same time. So,
yeah, and it's not like he can be reformed. It's not like I don't think Rhaenyra thinks she can reform him though. But I truly do wonder, does she know? Like, I mean, she can't possibly know exactly what he's about.
I was wondering when Daemon's like, oh, people are capable of pretty dark shit. Actually, I was wondering if that was going to come up, like if Rhaenyra was going to be like, how did your wife die, by the way?
Well, she oh, you mean the first one? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I'm sure she knows about the second one.
Yeah, I called in the Tony show as Vhagar and was talking about the mysterious death of Laena. Not sure how that happened. Yeah, but
That's awesome. Actually, I was doing a little bit of reading about their armor, the Royce armor too. So that's pretty interesting that he called her the bronze bitch, right? Because they wore bronze armor. They went a little bit of a different way in the show. It's more like a leather sort of breastplate, but they added the runes to, like, they added plates, like brass plates with the runes on it engraved. So that was pretty cool.
Well, you know how I feel about runic armor. I'm a big fan. So let me go ahead and take last call for questions and wrap it up, guys. I'm checking my super chats real quick here. I think I'm all through the PayPals. I mean, vice versa. No, we're all good. I've answered all questions, it looks like. So last call, and then we'll get up. We're over 2 hours, so.
Yeah, and I David, you remember that I had to get up at like 5 a.m. The last time that was crazy. But tonight, anyway, so yeah, I probably have to go to bed.
Very good. Yeah, the runes didn't work at all. Of course, they're not for protecting. The back of her head didn't have runes, so if Daemon had attacked her from the front, that would have been all right. That's what happened. Weak spot. It's like Achilles. So overall thoughts on the episode. I thought this was one of my favorites, if not my favorite episode. I like it when the plot is more centered on longer scenes and there's not so much happening. You can't always do that, but that feels the most immersive. So yeah, I really like this episode. A lot of character building to go over in the review. Heidi's channel is Costume Co.
Yes, thank you.
Costume and Co. And yeah, the episode review is going to be good this week. There's a lot of stuff to go over with symbolism and all that.
Yeah, and I'm going to probably be really honing in on the colors. The story. There's a lot of story through the color. The other thing I was going to mention, and I said this on Twitter today, is that I thought it was interesting that green and red, the Targs are red with black, and then the High Towers, the greens, are complementary colors, and I thought that was sort of interesting, like Christmas, right? So I was sort of pondering that. So I've been thinking a lot about color. Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about color. Little boy?
Yeah, so I'll probably be talking.
Wait! Everybody's getting lumps of coal.
Coal?
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme in their stocking this Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas is when all the family fights happen. That's true, isn't it?
It's funny. Yes, yeah. It's Christian coal, so that's interesting. Kristen. No, it's Kristen. It's not
Kristen.
It's
yeah,
Kristen.
But yeah. This whole thing is just a big family fight at Christmas.
Totally is.
Indeed.
Yeah. Did you ever see that video? I don't know how old it is. It's like this family they have the tables all out with the tablecloths, and someone just comes and lifts the table, and just knocks it into the air. And I was like, whoa, that's like quite a crazy Christmas dinner celebration. And someone just lifts the entire table up.
Yeah, that's literally flipping the table. I had a question.
Flipping the table.
Let's see. There's a super chat. Let's see. Any thoughts on Helena's dreaming? Aemond's change of character now that he has a dragon. Well, I commented on it earlier, Christian. You can see that Aemond is full of piss and vinegar after he claims Vhagar. And you would be too, but that's also a psychic dragon-link thing. And Helena's dreaming, I'm going to have to go over the lines in more detail and talk about it during the week. Yeah. So.
And what kind of insect was that she had that I couldn't quite figure out?
You mean last week?
The last one was like one of those millipede kind of things. I don't know. So it'd be interesting to see what the insect was, and if there's any symbolism with that.
I didn't even see that she had an insect. I missed that entirely.
Yeah, I think she had she's just always
a spider.
With bugs.
She had a spider. That's right.
A spider. Yes. Oh, a spider. Oh,
and she was talking about weaving. Yeah, so there's something there.
And spiders, like they do, they produce like a silk, right? So that's kind of interesting. Which, by the way, spider silk is the strongest fabric in the world. It's stronger than Kevlar. Did you know that?
Wow.
I think I've heard that. Yeah. It's we haven't cracked the code on how to reproduce it either. So yeah, it's pretty incredible substance. But yeah,
and then a long legs clip. Yeah, about the servants.
VA, did you have a question? I got your super chat, but it didn't have a question there. All right, guys. Well, go subscribe to Costume Co. And, of course, all you guys are subscribed to Teflon TV, Tony Teflon. But if you're not, thanks, Tony, for joining us. And I will see you this week with another video very soon. So thanks for joining me, Heidi.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks, audience. And, have a good night.
Bye.